Chapter 1047. On this side, Chu Luiyue solved Lin Qifei's problem and went back with De Bao to wait for the arrival of the next day. However, Lu Yi on the other side was not so relaxed. Lin Tianfeng made it clear that he was on Lin Qifei's side. As long as Chu Luiyue could cure Lin Qifei's illness, then no matter what she did, he would try his best to protect her. What's more, in the end, this matter was provoked by Lu Yi first. If he didn't make the first move, Chu Luiyue wouldn't have fought back like this. Therefore, Lu Yi was in a disadvantageous position. After Lin Tianfeng expressed that he would not help, he sternly warned him and ordered him to never do anything wrong in the future. He even reprimanded Lu Yue. Such a series of actions completely suppressed the brother and sister's arrogance. Lu Yi originally wanted to argue a few more words, but he was forcibly pulled away by Lu Yue. Lu Yue didn't dare to let Lu Yi stay in the Lin family and simply went back with him. When she arrived at the Lu family, as soon as she entered the door, she ordered all the servants to leave. After everyone left, Lu Yue stretched out her hand and fiercely poked Lu Yi's forehead. "Do you have a brain?" Lu Yi's forehead was scratched by her sharp nails, and his anger and grievance erupted in an instant. "Sister, how can you treat me like this? Am I still your brother? It's because you're my brother that I scolded you like this. If someone else dared to do this, I would have sent someone to deal with it in private." Lu Yue looked at him with a look of disappointment. "Do you know how much trouble you'll bring us by doing this today? When I asked you before who was the person who injured your men, you refused to tell me. I didn't expect it to be Duguyu. What were you thinking? Don't you know that she just became Lin Qifei's celestial physician 2 days ago? How would I know this?" Lu Yi also felt wronged and shouted. Who would have thought that such a lowly outsider would have such great means? Lin Tianfeng and his son were really stupid. Did they really think that Duguyu could cure Lin Qifei's illness? "That thing is in his body," Lu Yue shouted in shock. "Shut up." Looking at Lu Yue's angry face, Lu Yi realized that he had said something wrong, and a trace of timidity and guilt appeared in his heart. "If you dare to say such things again, you dash." Lu Yue raised her hand and wanted to slap him. She glared at him angrily for a while, but in the end she couldn't bring herself to do it. She angrily sat down on the chair and slammed her hand on the table. "Why do I have such a disappointing brother like you?" It was one thing for him to cause trouble on a normal day, but now he had actually caused trouble to this extent. "Do you think it was easy for me to reach my current position in the Lin family?" Lu Yi scratched his head and stepped forward. "Just don't be angry. You can't blame me for this, can you? It's all because of that Duguyu. She's too strange. Not only did she hurt my people, but she also took away my opportunity to go there. Just, you have to avenge me." Speaking of this, Lu Yue's heart was filled with resentment. She finally managed to persuade Lin Tianfeng to take Lu Yi with them, but who would have thought that they would be replaced before they left? "That Duguyu does have some skills." She clenched her hands and muttered in a low voice. A trace of hatred flashed across her eyes. "That's right. Just think about it. She's an outsider with a child. How did she manage to take on 8 of my subordinates by herself? Those people's strength is not weak." Lu Yue rolled her eyes. "Since she can break in from the outside, she must be at least a demigod. Isn't it easy for her to beat up your men?" Lu Yi shook his head. "Sis, do you think I didn't think of this? Because of this, when I sent people over, I had already selected the strongest few." He stretched out his finger. "Among the 8 people, half of them are rank 9 martial artists and 2 of them are peak rank 9. As for the rest, the weakest is a rank 8 martial artist. With such a lineup, is it not enough to deal with a fledgling demigod?" Lu Yue's expression changed slightly when she heard this. "Besides, even if they are not a match for a demigod together, their strength should not be too far apart. How could they be beaten up like that?" All 8 of them were beaten half to death, the tendons in their hands and feet were torn, and they were completely crippled. To be able to do such a thing, it was enough to show that Duguyu was vicious and merciless. "What you said is not without reason." Lu Yue fell into deep thought. "Besides, she's still a rank 7. No, she should be a rank 8 celestial physician now." It could be seen that Duguyu's talent in celestial physician was extremely high. Generally speaking, people with talent in this area would usually focus on research, and very few people would be distracted by martial artist cultivation. That Duguyu, I wonder how old she is. If she is really in her early 20s like she looks, and she's an outsider, then her talent and potential are really, Lu Yue muttered, and her heart was shocked. At first she did not feel it, but now, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that this Duguyu was not simple. "Sis, you must help me vent this anger," Lu Yi pleaded. Lu Yue waved her hand in annoyance. "Not now. Lin Tianfeng is watching closely, and besides, they are leaving tomorrow. Besides, if something really happened to Dugiyu at this time, then the first to be suspected would be them. Let's put this matter aside for now, we will see the situation tomorrow. Lu Yi wanted to say something but hesitated, and could only reluctantly agree. A look of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. Night. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and a few stars shone in the sky. Chapter 1048. The next moment, with a twist of her wrist, she pushed out a palm. The glowing silver palm print seemed slow, but in fact, it was moving forward quickly. Perhaps because the pressure was too strong, a long black space crack appeared behind it. Bang! The sound of something shattering could be heard. Light flashed on the palm print. The light dimmed a lot in an instant, but that sneak attack was intercepted in the end. A few pieces of broken icicles fell to the ground. Chu Luiyue frowned and took a look. A long figure was reflected on the window. Her pupils shrank slightly. This aura, you do have some skills. A low and cold voice came. Louis. Chu Luiyue almost immediately guessed the identity of the person who came. You're smart. In that case, we don't have to hide anymore. Louis sneered and suddenly waved his arm. Whoosh! His strength was so strong that it directly tore apart the enchantment set up by Chu Luiyue. He forced his way in through the window. Chu Luiyue immediately jumped up from the bed. What are you doing here? Chu Luiyue shook her wrist and held the long yuan sword in her hand. Why are you so nervous? Louis raised his eyebrows and sneered. He glanced at Chu Luiyue and said with disdain. Aren't you very powerful? Why are you scared? Chu Luiyue's red lips curled slightly. She chuckled, but her eyes were cold. Yes, I'm very scared. If I accidentally crippled the brother of the Lin family's matriarch, that would be really bad. Lu Yi's face suddenly turned ugly. Arrogant. However, in his heart there was indeed some fear. Since the woman in front of him could take care of those 8 people, it proved that she was indeed not weak. Could it be that she had completely stepped into the god realm? Just as this thought appeared in his mind, Lu Yi immediately rejected it. That was impossible. If she had really reached such a level, then when she met him that day she would not have chosen to escape directly. Moreover, it seemed that he had used some kind of origin device to teleport away. This didn't seem like something that a person of that level could do. I think you're the arrogant one, right? Chu Luiyue frowned. Now that I'm 4th young Master Lin's celestial physician, I'll be accompanying him soon. If something were to happen to me today, who do you think the Lin family would go after? Lu Yi certainly knew that if the matter was exposed, he and Lu Yuer would not be able to escape suspicion. But so what? As long as they did it in secret, even if Lin Tianfeng was suspicious of them, he wouldn't be able to convict them. You're right. Lu Yi's eyes flashed with a murderous aura. So for safety's sake from today on, you'd better shut your mouth forever. As he spoke, he raised the triangular awl in his hand and stabbed it towards Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue took a step back and raised his sword to block. Clang. Both sides clashed. Chu Luiyue's hand suddenly went numb. After all, the opponent was a demigod powerhouse, several levels higher than her. She had no chance of winning in a head-on fight. Just as Chu Luiyue's mind was racing, Lu Yi, who was opposite her, was shocked. You're not a god-level powerhouse. This wasn't a question but a statement. In the world of divine ruins, almost all cultivators would use origin devices to cover their aura and hide their true strength. Ordinary people generally couldn't see anything. But as long as they fought, the cultivator's true strength would be revealed and couldn't be concealed. This was Lu Yi's first time fighting with Chu Luiyue, so he immediately realized that something was wrong. Chu Luiyue raised his arm and flung his triangular awl away. At the same time, a red flame quickly spread along the dragon abyss sword. It flew towards Lu Yi at lightning speed. Sensing a scorching aura coming towards him, Lu Yi knew that something was wrong. Taking a closer look, it was actually an abnormally hot red flame. He keenly felt that the pressure on the flame was extremely powerful and couldn't be underestimated. Then he took a step back without thinking and poured his force into the triangular awl. Tripling icicle. Several inch-long, thumb-thick icicles condensed and flew out. Both sides faced the attack head-on. Boom. The red flame that was originally only the size of a palm suddenly burned violently. It transformed into a barrier and blocked in front of Chu Luiyue. The closer the icicles were, the slower they became. In the end, they actually began to silently melt. Louis was shocked. This tripling icicle was an extremely handy origin device for him. It was extremely powerful and almost invincible. However, when encountering this red flame, it actually had no power to resist. At this moment, Chu Liwei quickly swung his sword. A black light blade flew out. In the blink of an eye, it flew in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi was extremely shocked and furious as he crazily circulated his force. Several icicles flew out again. This time the number was several times more than before. In the blink of an eye, Chu Liu's figure was shrouded. The black light blade blocked most of the attacks, but there were still a few that narrowly dodged and went straight for Chu Liuwe. Chu Liuwe held the long yuan sword tightly and was about to move when she found that the space around her suddenly became sticky and heavy. Her body seemed to be pressed down by something, and every movement was extremely difficult. This was Louis using his divine power. Humph, although I haven't completely stepped into the god realm, it's enough to deal with you. Seeing that Chu Liuwe was forcibly suppressed, the nervousness in Lu Yi's heart finally dissipated. He couldn't help but sneer. Don't worry, my icicles are bone-piercing cold. As long as one pierces your body, it can quickly freeze your entire body. Not long after you can, what? Lu Yi's smug smile had just appeared when he saw the icicles hit Chu Liuwe's body. Not only did they not pierce her flesh, but they all shattered as if they were repelled by some force. He stared in disbelief and saw that Chu Liuwe's body was covered with a layer of pale golden armor. And those icicles that he had shot out earlier had been shattered by the impact of the collision. This armor? Lu Yi had the Lin family behind him, so he had seen many good things. So at this time, he recognized at a glance that this armor was definitely not an ordinary item. To be able to block his attack so easily, you have a lot of treasures on you. Lu Yi was so angry that he laughed, and there was a hint of greed in his eyes. As long as he got rid of her, these things would all be his. Just as he was about to attack again, the woman in front of him suddenly spoke. Lu Yi, have you never thought that since I'm not a god realm master, how did your subordinates fall to such a state? Lu Yi was stunned. Chu Liuwe showed a meaningful smile and looked behind him. Sorry to trouble you. Chapter 1049. Lu Yi thought to himself, oh no. He immediately turned around and looked behind him. However, before he could see the scene in front of him clearly, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Bang! His vision turned black and he fell to the ground with a muffled sound. The room returned to its original calm. If it weren't for Lu Yi lying on the ground with a bloody hole in his head, it would have looked like nothing had happened. Chu Liuwe lowered her gaze slightly, glanced at him coldly, and then gave him a thumbs up in admiration. Debao, you're amazing. On the opposite side, Dugu Mabao put down a chair expressionlessly. The chair was taller than him. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that such a soft and cute child could pick up a chair and defeat a demigod powerhouse. He's just a demigod who used various methods to advance. His real combat power is actually similar to that of an ordinary peak 9th grade martial artist. Dugu Mabao commented indifferently. This was also why Chu Liuwe could barely exchange 1 or 2 blows with him just now. Chu Liuwe smiled and said, that's true. You've already dealt with the previous 8 people. What's one more? Recalling the scene at that time, Chu Liuwe was still full of shock. At that time, she and Debao were blocked by those people in a narrow and dark alley. They were attacked from the front and back, and the opponent's realm was all higher than hers. When the situation was about to get out of hand, Debao stood up. From the beginning to the end, Chu Liuwe didn't even move a finger. It wasn't that she didn't dare, but she didn't have time. By the time she realized what had happened, Debao had already taken care of the last person. She had to say what she did. Did putting people into boxes count? This was because Debao thought it was dirty, so he gave this dispensable task to Chu Liuwe. From the beginning to the end he only used a brick. Thinking of this, Chu Liuwe's expression became a little complicated. Last time it was a brick. This time it's a chair. Debao, why don't I buy you a good yuan instrument? Dugu Mabao glanced at her coldly and said, don't worry. I'm afraid I'll lose face if I use an origin tool to deal with these people. Chu Liuwe. Pretend I didn't ask. She seemed to be overthinking things when talking to a terrifying existence who had condensed a divine body. However, speaking of which, when you concealed your aura at the beginning, I thought it was inconvenient for you to make a move. It's not convenient for me to attack, so I didn't use my godly power. Dugu Mabao said calmly. This divine body is enough to deal with these small problems. Chu Liuwe's mouth twitched. Small problem? She started to regret talking to Dugu Mabao about this. Every time she mentioned these things, her self-esteem and confidence would be crazily attacked. Cough. Chapter 1050. Dugu Mabao's eyes flickered slightly. It's just a coincidence. Really? Chu Luiyue asked skeptically. At that time, your physical body was dead and your physical body was completely destroyed. Only a wisp of your soul was left, which was barely reborn into this body. What does that have to do with the soul-devouring pill? Dugu Mabao said lightly. Chu Luiyue nodded thoughtfully. That's true, but, however, she still felt that there was something wrong with this matter. At that time, after she was reborn, she had even specifically asked about the time. That day was indeed exactly 1 year after her death. If it was a coincidence, was there really no deeper meaning? Let's send him back first in case anything happens. Dugu Mabao urged calmly. Chu Luiyue glanced at Dugu Mabao in front of her. She didn't know if he didn't want to talk about it with her, or if he was really uninterested, but she didn't ask further. Maybe, she was thinking too much? She nodded and put away her doubts. She pulled Louis up from the ground. Let's go. The night passed silently. Early the next morning, Chu Luiyue brought Dugu Mabao to the Lin family. When the guards saw the two of them, they bowed from afar, their faces full of smiles. Miss Dugu, you're finally here. Master and fourth young master are waiting for you. Seeing their reaction, Chu Luiyue understood that the news of Lin Qifei's recovery should have spread. Sure enough, after walking for a short while, she saw Lin Tianfeng, who had heard the news and came out to greet her. Seeing Chu Luiyue, Lin Tianfeng's face instantly stretched into a smile. Miss Dugu? Chu Luiyue smiled and greeted him. Master Lin, I'm not late, am I? You're not late at all. Lin Tianfeng was all smiles. Please come in. Jifei is packing his things so he didn't come. Miss Dugu, please don't blame him. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. How could this be? Although she knew that Lin Tianfeng favored Lin Qifei, she didn't expect it to be to this extent. She hadn't completely cured Lin Qifei yet. Lin Tianfeng's attitude towards her was much better than before. If he really waited for Lin Qifei to recover, he wouldn't know how to thank him. Chu Luiyue asked as he followed Lin Tianfeng inside. Is fourth young master feeling better today? Much better, much better. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly nodded, his eyes filled with undisguised excitement and relief. Miss Dugu is indeed amazing. This time it's all thanks to you. Originally, he wanted to check on Lin Qifei last night, but the servant said that he had already taken off his clothes so he didn't disturb him. But when he saw Lin Qifei this morning, he immediately felt the difference. Lin Qifei's body was indeed much better. This allowed him to finally relax his heart that had been hanging in the air all this time. When he saw Chu Luiyue again, his reaction was naturally different. Chu Luiyue chuckled. It's mainly because fourth young master has a good foundation and good luck. No matter what, I have to thank Miss Dugu properly this time. Lin Tianfeng sighed with emotion. As they spoke, the two had already arrived at Lin Qifei's residence. The servant was already at the door to welcome them. As soon as he walked in, Chu Luiyue saw Lin Qifei. Today he wore a bamboo green brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist. It was clearly an extremely simple outfit, but it had a clear and bright charm. Her face, which had always been pale, had a hint of color. Coupled with her eyes that seemed to have become clearer, she looked completely different from before. Without the existence of the strange bead, and the knot in his heart had been untied, he naturally recovered very quickly. Seeing him like this, Chu Luiyue was inwardly surprised. It could only be said that Lin Qifei's recovery ability was indeed stronger than she had expected. Without any obstacles, this kind of person's future path was bound to be very broad and bright. It was no wonder that Lin Tianfeng was so happy today. This should be the scene he wanted to see the most in the past few decades, right? It seems that fourth young master has really recovered. Chu Luiyue smiled as he walked forward. The indifference between Lin Qifei's eyebrows melted a lot. Everything depends on Miss Dugu. Last night was the most peaceful sleep I've had in years. I wonder, did Miss Dugu sleep well? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat and her smile deepened. Thank you for your concern, fourth young master. Debeo and I also slept very well. Lin Qifei nodded. That's good. Then Chu Luiyue took the opportunity to take his pulse. Fourth young master's body has been damaged for several years. If you want to fully recover, you'll need to carefully rest for a period of time. Lin Qifei smiled. You've already endured so many years. What else can't wait? Hearing the two's conversation, Lin Tianfeng confirmed that Lin Qifei's body really did have a chance to recover. He turned slightly and took a deep breath, suppressing the tears in his eyes. Patriarch, fourth young master, everyone is already waiting in the front hall. The manservant came forward to report. It's time to go. Only then did Lin Tianfeng turn around and urge the two with a smile. Look at me, I almost forgot about this. Jifei Miss Dugu, let's go. The few of them went straight to the front hall. When they arrived, there was indeed a group of people gathered. Chu Luiyue quickly glanced around. The three old men had obscure auras. They were obviously the elders chosen by the Lin family to go with them. Next to them stood three young girls. At a glance, all of them were beautiful and graceful. Moreover, the auras around the three of them were not weak either. It was obvious that they were carefully selected beauties, and they were excellent in all aspects. Chu Luiyue's gaze suddenly became a little strange. It seemed that these three were the candidates chosen by Heavenly Cave Cliff to participate in the Holy Sun's concubine selection. Seeing Lin Tianfeng and the others arrive, the people in the front hall immediately looked over and bowed in unison. Greetings, Patriarch. Lin Tianfeng raised his hand and smiled brightly. We're about to set off, so there's no need to be so formal. Seeing that he was so happy, the few of them looked at each other and then at Lin Qifei, who followed behind him. They all understood. Seeing that Patriarch is so happy, it seems that fourth young master's body has almost recovered? One of the elders laughed and asked. It's all thanks to Miss Dugu. Lin Tianfeng laughed heartily. Hearing his affirmative answer, everyone in the room instantly looked at Chu Luiyue. This woman looked ordinary and they heard that she was an outsider. Could she really be that powerful? Chu Luiyue seemed to be in a daze. Lin Qifei called out to her gently. Miss Dugu? Miss Dugu? What are you thinking about? Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and realized that everyone was looking at her. She smiled. Nothing, I was just thinking that these girls are really very beautiful. His Highness the Holy Sun will like them very much when he sees them, right? Chapter 1051. For some reason Lin Qifei felt that there was something wrong with Chu Luiyue's tone, but he couldn't put his finger on it. On the other hand, the women looked delighted when they heard this. Although they knew that their chances of being selected were slim, who didn't like to hear beautiful words? Besides, no one could be certain about this kind of thing. If they were lucky, they would soar to the sky. Thank you, Miss Dugu, for your kind words. However, there are many tribes participating in the Holy Sun's birthday banquet this time. Each tribe has selected the most outstanding women of the right age, so the competition is fierce. We still don't know what the outcome will be. Lin Tianfeng chuckled. In fact, he didn't have much hope at all. Among the many tribes, Heavenly Cave Cliff was considered to be at the bottom. Whether it was territory, resources, or other aspects, they couldn't compare to the other tribes. The three women today were carefully selected by them with great difficulty. At first glance, they might look good, but compared to the noble ladies carefully trained by the larger tribes, they were still incomparable. When the women heard this, they hurriedly restrained their expressions. Miss Dugu is young and came from outside the realm. I didn't expect that she could really cure the fourth young master's illness. I heard that Miss Dugu is now an 8th grade celestial physician? An old man standing at the back suddenly spoke. His voice was solemn and carried an undisguised arrogance. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. The old man's cheeks were thin and his hair was white. However, his eyes flashed with a shrewd and cold light. Ever since she and Lin Qifei came in, he didn't smile much. Moreover, he seemed to have a hidden hostility towards her. Chu Luiyue smiled as if she didn't notice anything amiss. She smiled and said, I did break through to the 8th grade celestial physician 2 days ago. Senior, this is Elder Lu Ruhai. Lin Qifei said. He is also the Lin family's current celestial physician, the Great Elder. Chu Luiyue immediately understood. So this is the celestial physician with the highest rank in the Lin family? According to Lin Tianfeng, it seemed that he was already peak rank 9? After knowing the other party's identity, Chu Luiyue immediately understood why the other party didn't like him. He was powerful and had a high status in the Lin clan. Lin Qifei's illness, which had not been cured for many years, was cured as soon as she came. Wasn't this a slap to his face? It was no wonder that he treated her like this. Chu Luiyue bowed. Junior Dugu greets Senior Lu Ruhai. Lu Ruhai directly said, There's no need for such formalities. Perhaps in the future, this old man will have many questions to consult Miss Dugu. These words sounded a little strange, but Chu Luiyue didn't care and just smiled. Elder Lin Mo, who had been talking to Lin Tianfeng at the beginning, came out to smooth things over. Ah, since everyone is here, then Patriarch, let's go, shall we? Lin Tianfeng nodded. But then Lu Ruhai suddenly said, Of course we're going, but what's with that child? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, she saw him staring coldly at Dugu Mabao. She pulled Dugu Mabao behind her and smiled politely. Debeo is just a child and he's always been obedient. He won't cause any trouble. Oh? Are you sure? Lu Ruhai lightly snorted. You have to know how precious the quota to go to that place is. Since you cured fourth young master and will be accompanying him for a period of time, there's nothing wrong with giving you a quota. But this child. Elder Lu, according to this child's age, he won't take up a quota, Lin Tianfeng reminded. This old man is naturally aware of this, but Patriarch, don't forget that His Highness, the Holy Sun, is holding a birthday banquet this time. At the same time, there will be a consort selection. Bringing a child to such an occasion, isn't it a little inappropriate? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly, but there was no smile in her eyes. Then according to what you're saying, do you want me to leave De Bao alone? Lu Ruhai stroked his beard. That's not impossible. Anyway, the Lin family still has the mistress, and there are many people in the family who can take care of the child. They won't treat him badly. This is convenient for everyone, isn't it? Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. You want to take De Bao hostage? You've got a pretty good plan. He was afraid that if he angered De Bao, the ones who would suffer would be the others. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. She looked directly at Lin Tianfeng and asked with a faint smile, Patriarch Lin, what do you think? Lin Tianfeng shook his head almost without hesitation. No need. This child is still young. How can he be separated from his mother? With so many of us here, there won't be any problems. Duguyu came to the Divine Ruins world to take the child to find her husband. If they separated the mother and son, it would be too unkind. Although he was a little worried, Duguyu cured Ji Fei's illness, and he was willing to take responsibility. Patriarch. This? Lu Ruhai wanted to say something, but Lin Tianfeng stopped him with a look. Alright, it's getting late. Let's set off as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, Lin Tianfeng directly left. Lu Ruhai's face was a little ugly, but he couldn't argue anymore. He frowned and looked at Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao and then followed. Chu Luiyue touched Dugu Mabao's head. Don't worry, I won't leave you no matter where we go. Dugu Mabao's eyes twitched fiercely, but when he heard this, he resisted the urge to explode. The group didn't say anything else and went straight to the teleportation array. Chapter 1052. Perhaps it was because Chu Luiyue's current appearance was too ordinary, and she was an outstanding celestial physician. Or perhaps it was because Dugu Mabao was too soft and cute, causing the women's maternal love to overflow. In short, along the way their attitude towards Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao was extremely good. Several people surrounded the two and asked a lot of questions. Obviously they were very interested in the two of them. Chu Luiyue was fine and chatted with them from time to time. Dugu Mabao's little face was cold, and his whole body exuded a cold air that kept people away. Unfortunately, with his current cute appearance and body, it was really not convincing. If not for Chu Luiyue's strict defense, Dugu Mabao's noble face would have been touched. In this way, after an extremely difficult period of time, they finally arrived at the place. Chu Luiyue raised her eyes and looked forward. This was a huge square. In the middle of the square, there was a circular black teleportation array. Some kind of pattern was engraved on it. That was the Lin family's totem. There were not many people around, but there were still several teams of guards guarding it. The standard was very high and the atmosphere was solemn. After arriving here, everyone seemed to have become serious. There was a vague sense of awe. Lin Tianfeng looked around and frowned. Where's Yu-er? According to the rules, Lu Yu-er should have been waiting here early and sent them off. But at this time, everyone else was here, but Lu Yu-er was nowhere to be seen. The man in the lead stepped forward and said respectfully, Master, Madam, she just left temporarily because of some special matters. What matter was more important than sending them to that place? Lin Tianfeng didn't need to think to know what was going on, and his face turned cold. Something happened to the Lu family again? This. The man hesitated for a moment and lowered his voice. I heard that there's something wrong with young Master Lu's body. Humph, he's usually the most arrogant, what problem can he have? Not only was Lu Yi insensible, but even Lu Yu-er was also fooling around. For the sake of her spoiled little brother, she even disregarded her duty as the Lin family's matriarch. Forget it. It wouldn't be too late to settle the score after they returned. As Lin Tianfeng spoke, he stepped onto the transmission array. Lin Qifei, Elder Lin Mo, and the others followed closely behind. Then there were a few young girls. Finally it was Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao. This teleportation array was actually not very big. It seemed that only about 100 people could pass through at a time, but its aura was extraordinary. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to step forward, the women who had just stepped forward suddenly cried out in pain. One of them didn't pay attention and directly knelt on the ground. Her knee hit the ground hard, making a muffled sound. After all, she was able to break in from the outside and had extraordinary strength. But this child? Why did it seem like he was not affected at all? Chu Luiyue roughly guessed what they were thinking but did not say much. Lin Qifei curled his palm and smiled. It's good that you're fine. Father, let's go. Lin Tianfeng nodded and suppressed the doubts in his heart. The force around him gathered. Soon, a bright and resplendent pattern appeared above his head. It was also the Lin family's totem. Buzz, the teleportation array seemed to be urged by some kind of force and slowly started to turn. At the same time, thousands of miles away, several islands floated quietly. The rich force of heaven and earth condensed into white mist and floated lightly. Below them was the deep blue sea. Under the sunlight, it was sparkling and sparkling. At a glance, it was like a fairyland. On one of the islands, a few guards were guarding a teleportation array. Suddenly, a strange fluctuation came from the teleportation array. One of the guards widened his eyes slightly. Why does this seem like the aura of His Highness the Son of God? What nonsense are you talking about? His Highness's birthday banquet is about to begin. People from various tribes have already arrived. The main island is very lively. Why would His Highness appear here? A guard beside him immediately retorted. But, no buts. I heard that the one from the Tomb of Immortal Water is also here. The position of princess consort should be hers? Digression. Finally, she waved her weak little hand. Those who have tickets must cast them out before 12 o'clock. So big. Chapter 1053. Wait. Just as Lin Qianfeng's group was about to set off, an anxious shout came from the distance. Dugi, you can't go. Hearing this voice, Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat and he looked up. It was Liyue. She was in a hurry and her eyes were filled with anger. She rushed up to Chu Liyue and was about to step onto the teleportation formation when she was stopped by a guard. Mistress, you can't go to the teleportation formation now. Liyue was furious and could only stand there, looking at Lin Tianfeng with grievance. Master, you can't take her. Lin Tianfeng frowned. What are you doing? Master, she injured Lu Yi and even poisoned him. You can't let such a vicious person stay by your side. What nonsense are you talking about? Lin Tianfeng was already dissatisfied with her, and hearing her lose her composure for Lu Yi, he couldn't help but feel even more annoyed. Liyue saw that the teleportation formation was about to start, and her heart was filled with anger and anxiety. She pointed at Chu Liyue, her eyes full of resentment. Dugiyu, you know best what you've done. Chu Liyue smiled. Madam Lin, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? You said that I injured young Master Lu and poisoned him, but Debeo and I were resting at the inn last night and didn't go out. Do you have any evidence? Liyue was furious. She heard the news this morning that something had happened to Lu Yi. She didn't want to go at first. After all, she still had to send off Lin Tianfeng and the others. But it seemed that the manservant who delivered the news was extremely flustered. She was worried, so she still went. It didn't matter if she didn't go. When she went, she found that Lu Yi's condition was indeed very bad. Not only was there a bloody hole in his head, but he was also running a high fever. He had been in a coma and was constantly muttering nonsense. Seeing him like this, she immediately guessed that he must have gone to find trouble with Dugiyu and ended up like this. That was why she came to find trouble with Dugiyu, wanting her to give her an explanation. But the evidence, was she going to tell him everything? They were in the wrong. Currently, the only person who could testify against Dugiyu was Lu Yi, but his mind was muddled and he couldn't say anything. Seeing that Liyue was speechless, Lin Qianfeng's tone became much harsher. Miss Dugu is an honored guest of my Lin family. How can you slander her like this? Don't let me hear such words again. Otherwise, Liyue bit her lips, the thick smell of blood permeating between her lips and teeth. This Dugiyu is really good. By curing Lin Qifei, he easily gained Lin Qianfeng's trust and protection. If he let her go now, it would be difficult to deal with her in the future. But she was not qualified to go with him. Dugiyu, I won't let this matter rest. The truth will be revealed one day. When that time comes, we'll see. Although Miss Dugu is an outsider, her talent is outstanding and her strength is strong. That man is obviously blind to treat you like this. It's not easy to find a three-legged toad, but a two-legged man is everywhere. According to Miss Dugu's conditions, why would she worry about marriage? The women said angrily. Chu Liyue clenched her fist to her lips and coughed. Oh, actually, he's not that bad. Before Chu Liyue could finish her sentence, the few women exclaimed in shock. Miss Dugu, Don't tell me you still can't forget that scumbag? That can't be. That's right. This kind of man can't be. Chu Liwei, if they knew that the person they were scolding now was the holy son that they longed to see, what would their expressions be like? And if that honorable His Highness, the Holy Son, heard these words, what kind of expression would he have? We're almost there. Lin Tianfeng suddenly said. Chu Liwei looked forward. A bright spot of light appeared at the end of the tunnel. The Yuntian Tower is in front. Chapter 1054. Yuntian Tower. Chu Liwei repeated the name in her mind. So, that's the name of Rong Xiu's family? When the few people beside him heard this, they all quieted down. Even in the dark tunnel, it wasn't hard for Chu Liwei to sense the slightly tense atmosphere. Even Lin Tianfeng's expression was unprecedentedly solemn and serious. It was obvious that everyone was more or less nervous. Soon, a strange fluctuation came from the front. Chu Liwei subconsciously held her breath. With a burst of pressure, the sky lit up. Stepping on the thick ground, Chu Liwei's heart calmed down a little. She was not used to the glaring sunlight and squinted her eyes slightly. After a while she looked around. In front of her was an azure sea. The waves sparkled, pure and vast. In the distance, islands of different sizes floated quietly in the air, surrounded by smoke. It was like a fairyland. The sky was a clear, light blue. Where the water met the sky, it was almost impossible to tell whether the blue was the sky or the sea. There was a faint sweet smell in the air that refreshed the heart and refreshed the mind, making the entire body feel comfortable. Chu Liwei was secretly shocked. The density and purity of the heaven and earth origin force here was something she had never seen before. At this moment she heard a dignified voice. Heavenly Cave Cliff? Chu Liwei paused and turned to look in the direction of the voice. Beside the teleportation formation, there were a few guards in black armor. The one who spoke seemed to be of a higher rank, and his aura was stronger than the others. On the left chest of their armor, there was a strange pattern engraved. This should be the totem of the Yuntian Tower. Chu Liwei looked at it and felt that it was somewhat familiar. Lin Tianfeng cupped his hands and smiled. Lin Tianfeng of Heavenly Cave Cliff has led the clan to congratulate His Highness the Holy Son on his birthday. The leader cupped his fists and said politely, "Greetings, Patriarch Lin." The people behind him also bowed in unison. Chu Liwei looked on from behind with some amusement. Although these people were very polite to Lin Tianfeng, they did not seem to put themselves down. Lin Tianfeng also treated them with great respect, and his attitude was clearly different from that of ordinary guards. The Yuntian Tower was indeed extraordinary. These soldiers were obviously treating him like this because he was a member of the Yuntian Tower. When a clan was strong to a certain extent, everyone would be respected. This was the right to speak that came with strength. "Patriarch Lin, why are you so late? His Highness's birthday banquet is in a few hours. If you were any later, you wouldn't even be able to go to the main island." Lin hurriedly. "I'm sorry, we did not meet. There was a problem with the teleportation formation earlier, so it was delayed." The soldier shook his head. "Forget it." Compared to the stream of light on the token, that stream of light was obviously much more majestic. Not long after, the two streams of light connected in mid-air, forming a bridge. "Everyone please." Lin Tianfeng was the first to leap up and land on the bridge. The rest of the people followed closely behind. The elders were still fine. After all, they had seen a lot of the world, so they were still calm at this time. However, even though the women tried their best to appear calm, the corners of their eyes and brows could not hide the excitement and curiosity. It was their first time here. The Yuntian Tower was a place that was unreachable for them. Now, using this opportunity, they could actually come here. It was like a dream. Chu Liwei led Dugu Mabao and was the last to go up. "Let's go." Lin Tianfeng took the lead and walked forward. At the same time, Rong Xiu was reading in the study. Suddenly, he paused and his thin lips curled into a faint smile. "You're finally here." With that, he stood up and walked outside. Yan Qing saw this and quickly followed. "Your Highness, do you really want to go personally now? How about this subordinate go first? Now that there are people outside, it is inevitable that His Highness will be seen." Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. "I naturally have to go personally to welcome my own princess." Chapter 1055. Yan Qing cursed in her heart. His words were like gold and jade. He had already said that she was the princess, but he still wanted to hold a consort selection hall with great fanfare as if it was real. When that person came and saw this scene, who knew what kind of reaction she would have? But since His Highness had decided to do this as subordinates, They could only follow his orders. In a short time, countless possible scenes flashed through Yanqing's mind. Well, perhaps he should also think about how he would not be implicated by His Highness when the time came. However, just as the master and servant walked out before they could move, Yuemo hurried back from outside. Your Highness. Seeing Rongxiao, Yuemo hurriedly bowed. Your Highness, Miss Jiang is here. She is waiting outside the hall at this moment, saying that she has something important to discuss with you personally. He did not mention her background or name. Just Miss Jiang was enough to explain who she was. This could only prove that this person's status was extremely high, and it was obvious who she was referring to. Rongxiao did not stop walking and his expression was indifferent. Let her wait. Yuemo was stunned for a moment. He looked up in surprise and glanced at Rongxiao. It would be fine if His Highness did not want to see anyone else, but this person. Then Yuemo had a flash of inspiration as he suddenly thought of something. Could it be? He quickly looked at Yanqing. Yanqing nodded calmly. Yuemo understood. No wonder. It was really that person who came. Yuemo immediately swallowed the words in his throat. Since that person was here, everyone else had to step back. However, not long after Rongxiao walked out, a sweet and gentle woman's voice was heard. Your Highness, where are you going? You are in such a hurry that you don't even want to see me? Rongxiao stopped and looked sideways. A woman dressed in a long white dress was standing there charmingly. She was slender, and there were no extra accessories on her body. Only a thin blue jade belt around her waist outlined the curves of a young girl. Her face was like a peach and her facial features were perfect. The most moving thing was the gentleness in her watery eyes. Her fine black hair was tied up in an exquisite bun with a sapphire dangling from it. She tilted her head slightly and shook it gently as if she could stir people's hearts. Rongxiao narrowed his eyes and said calmly, Jianghuan? Why are you here? As he spoke, his gaze fell on Yuemo. Yuemo was shocked and hurriedly said, Your Highness, this subordinate asked eldest young Miss Jiang to wait outside and did not invite her in. This subordinate also does not know why she is here. The soldiers who were standing guard at the side were stunned. Only then did they realize that they seemed to have done something wrong. They hurriedly knelt down. Your Highness, I have already set the rules. Without I's permission, no one is allowed to enter or leave this place. It seems like you guys don't have a good memory. Your Highness. Please spare my life, Your Highness. Strip him of his position and flog him 100 times. Rongxiao's voice was cold. It's in front of the main hall. Carry it out immediately. Hearing his words, the soldiers' faces turned pale and they fell to the ground. It's over? The smile on Jiang Jiwan's face froze. Your Highness, what are you doing? They only let me in because they saw that it was me. In the past, I could come and go freely when I came here. I have never, that was in the past. Rongxiao looked at her deeply. When the clan leader lived here, you could do whatever you wanted. But now this is I's palace. Naturally, I have the final say. I believe that this time, eldest young Miss Jiang should also remember this rule, right? Digression, continue at 6 p.m. The list of names for August's periphery will be announced tomorrow. Chapter 1056. Jiang Jiwan's face slowly turned red. Tears welled up in her eyes and the tip of her nose stung. She bit her lip and tried to calm herself down, but her voice still sounded like she was about to cry. I didn't know Your Highness hated me so much. Originally, she was overjoyed when she came here. Her mind was filled with thoughts of what would happen after their meeting. She rarely came here in the past few years. She hadn't seen Rongxiao for 2 years. She had imagined countless scenarios, but none of them were as embarrassing as the one before her. Her face felt like it was on fire. It was burning with pain. The gazes of the people around her were like steel needles piercing her body. She wished she could disappear from this place immediately. She didn't expect that he would embarrass her like this. Compared to Jiang Jiwan's shock and heartache, Rongxiao didn't take this matter to heart. In the past, when the clan leader was in power, he indulged her in every possible way. But now it was different. Jiang Jiwan's status wasn't low, but this was the Yintian Tower. She couldn't do as she pleased. Yuemo, stay here and watch them finish their punishment. Yes. Yuemo wiped the sweat off his forehead. He couldn't help but look at Jiang Jiwan with a trace of dissatisfaction in his heart. Does this young miss still think that the Yintian Tower today is the same as the Yintian Tower a few years ago? Wasn't she a little too bold? She actually dared to barge in like this. She really doesn't treat me as an outsider. Rongxiao finished speaking and was about to leave. Seeing that he was about to leave, Jiang Jiwan couldn't help but shout again. Wait. Your Highness, do you really not want to see me that much? We haven't seen each other for years. Rong Xiao wanted to nod directly, but he chose to be merciful for the sake of the Jiang clan. I have something important to do. Jiang Jiwan was slightly stunned. What is so important that your Highness needs to do personally at this time? In a while the banquet would begin. What was he planning to do? Rong Xiao's eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of frost. Miss Jiang, are you questioning I? Jiang Jiwan's heart tightened. No, I'm not. I'm just asking casually. It's fine if your Highness doesn't want to tell me. Seeing that Rong Xiao really had no reluctance and was about to leave, she gritted her teeth and took a step forward. Your Highness, I'm here because I have something important to discuss with you. Rong Xiao seemed to have no intention of paying attention to him. He turned around with an indifferent expression. It's related to the academy? Jiang Jiwan shouted. Rong Xiao paused and looked back at her. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. Speak. Chu Luiyue and the others walked along the silver bridge. After about 15 minutes, they arrived at the main island. Although there are many outstanding women from the various tribes, who doesn't know that the position of concubine has already been decided? Hearing this, Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. You mean, the one from the immortal water mausoleum? Other than her, who else could it be? Rumor has it that she is a stunning beauty and she was born with a rare Tianjing Yuan meridian just like the saint. That's not all. You must know that the Jiang clan in the immortal water mausoleum is the most powerful existence among all the tribes. Moreover, the old clan leader of the Yuntian Tower has a close relationship with the Jiang clan, and he has always doted on Miss Jiang. When she was young, she spent most of her time at the Yuntian Tower. It's probably because the old clan leader is in seclusion and she is diligent in her cultivation that she has less contact with the Yuntian Tower. With these conditions, do you think that the position of concubine will fall into her family's hands? If that's the case, then why does the saint still choose a concubine with such great fanfare? Can't he just get engaged to Miss Jiang directly? Who knows? Anyway, we're just here to serve as a foil. Besides, even if the concubine can't be chosen, there are still concubines, right? At the very least, there are concubines. As long as she is chosen, she won't have to worry for the rest of her life. I've heard that the saint is unparalleled in his handsomeness, like an immortal. I wonder what he looks like. Chu Luiyue stroked his chin. Concubine. Concubine. Concubine? So the Holy Son's life was actually so good. Chapter 1057. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but laugh. The people around them were originally quietly listening to the women in the corner, but Chu Luiyue's laughter immediately broke the silence. Lin Tianfeng and the others looked over strangely. The commotion here also attracted the attention of the women who were chatting happily not far away. They quickly stopped and looked over nervously. It was fine for them to talk like this in private, but if someone with ulterior motives overheard, when they saw Hu Yang standing at the front, the women's faces turned slightly pale, but they secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. This was because Hu Yang wasn't directly responsible for looking after them. They quickly calmed down, looked at each other, and walked over. Greetings, Lord Hu. The three women bowed in unison. They were all beautiful, slender, and dainty. Their movements were very graceful and dignified. It was obvious that they had learned the relevant etiquette before, and it was impossible to find fault with them. Hu Yang nodded and pointed to Lin Tianfeng. This is clan leader Lin of Heavenly Cave Cliff. Heavenly Cave Cliff. The women showed a look of understanding, then smiled and bowed. Greetings, clan leader Lin. I've heard of your name for a long time, and seeing you today, I can see that you live up to your reputation. These words were said very politely and also very flattering. It would be better if they could cover up the contempt and disdain in their eyes. Lin Tianfeng was able to keep his composure and didn't argue with them. His expression was calm and he didn't reveal anything. Ladies, you're too polite. If I'm selected this time, I'll be the one to bow to you in the future. The expressions of the women on the other side changed instantly. Wasn't he clearly mocking them? But considering the other party's identity and the fact that Hu Yang and the others were standing around, they didn't want to make things too ugly, so they swallowed their anger and forced a smile. Not at all. I'm just a lowly person, how could I dare to have such extravagant hopes? Lin Qifei suddenly coughed. Hearing this, Lin Tianfeng immediately turned around and asked worriedly, Qifei, are you feeling unwell? Hu Yang said. Fourth young master Lin, this way please. As he spoke, he led his men all the way to the side hall. Chu Luiyue was about to follow, but was suddenly stopped by those women. Miss, please wait. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. Is something the matter? A beautiful woman in a lotus-colored dress smiled slightly, but there was no smile in her eyes. May I ask, what were you laughing at just now? Chu Luiyue also laughed. It's nothing. I just thought of something and chuckled. What's wrong? Could it be that the few of you have something against this? The woman sneered and took a few steps forward, approaching Chu Luiyue. Dugu, you really didn't seem to care about this at all. Chu Luiyue walked into the room, took Lin Qifei's pulse and handed over a pill. This is the last one. I'll continue to refine it when I have time. You should be able to recover more than half in a month or so. It's just that fourth young master's body has been burdened by illness for many years. He needs to rest well for about a year or so before he can fully recover. Lin Qifei nodded lightly. Thank you. Master Lin, the people from Cold Mountain Valley have already taken the main hall. I'll have to trouble you to stay in this side hall for the time being. Hu Yang sighed and said. Lin Tianfeng wanted to say something but stopped. In the end he didn't flare up and only nodded. At this moment, a series of familiar footsteps suddenly came from outside. Chu Luiyue seemed to sense something and looked back. A figure appeared at the door. It was Yanqing. Hu Yang was shocked. He hurried forward and asked respectfully. Lord Yanqing, why are you here? Yanqing was in a hurry. Her eyes quickly searched the room. When she saw Chu Luiyue, her heart skipped a beat. Chu Luiyue smiled, her red lips slightly opened. Lord Yanqing? Chapter 1058. Yanqing hurriedly walked to Chu Luiyue and was about to speak when the girl suddenly stepped forward. Greetings, Lord Yanqing. I am Dugu, said Chu Luiyue with a smile and bowed at the same time. Yanqing's legs turned to jelly, and he almost knelt on the ground. You, he spoke in a trembling voice, but before he could say anything he saw Chu Luiyue's bright black eyes. That pair of star-like eyes were glowing with a clear and bright light. Yanqing choked and the rest of his words were stuck in his throat. He complained incessantly in his heart. His Highness was supposed to come, but he was stopped by Jianghu. Hearing that it had something to do with the academy, His Highness temporarily stayed behind and let him come first. Yanqing had already expected that Chu Luiyue would not be in a good mood after knowing these things. She might be angry or reprimanded, but he did not expect that she would not even want to admit her identity. But this was even scarier than those reactions. Yanqing regretted it for a moment. He should have waited to come with His Highness. Why did he have to become cannon fodder now? Only then did the surrounding people realize that the atmosphere between the two was very unusual. Hu Yang's eyes darted back and forth between the two of them, and he asked tentatively. Lord Yanqing, are you acquainted with Miss Dugu? Yanqing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His throat was tight. Yes. I have met Lord Yanqing a few times before, but at that time I did not know Lord Yanqing's identity. Only today did I know that Lord Yanqing's identity is so impressive. Chu Luiyue responded smoothly, and the smile on her face did not diminish at all. She looked very relaxed. However, in the ears of the people around them, these words were no different from a clap of thunder. Dugu actually knows Yanqing? He was the closest confidant of His Highness the Saint. Such a status was enough to kill 90% of the people in Yuntian Tower. Yanqing's eyes twitched. Every word that came out of Chu Luiyue's mouth was like roasting him on a rack. Lin Tianfeng looked on in amazement from the side. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. Wait a minute. Dugu was an outsider, so she shouldn't have been to the Divine Ruins world before. In that case, did the two of them know each other outside the Divine Ruins realm? Looking at the reactions of the two people, especially the expression of this Yanqing, how could it be that they had only met a few times? Could it be? Lin Tianfeng had a bold and absurd conjecture. This idea was so absurd that just thinking about it made his heart beat uncontrollably. He almost subconsciously looked at Lin Qifei, only to see that Lin Qifei was also observing the two people thoughtfully. The surrounding people made Yanqing feel uneasy. He swallowed hard. Miss Dugu, may I have a word with you? As soon as Yanqing entered the room, he knelt down on one knee and admitted his mistake. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly as if she were shocked. Lord Yanqing, what are you doing? Please get up. I can't accept this bow. If outsiders know about this, it will be inappropriate. Yanqing smiled bitterly and begged, don't worry. Please don't make fun of me. I had no choice but to hide it from you. Oh? No choice? So, your master was also forced to do it? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Yanqing choked. If I didn't come this time, I'm afraid that His Highness would have chosen a harem and lived a carefree life here, right? This. You really misunderstood. There are all kinds of beauties here. If I were a man, I would be tempted to see them. Yanqing felt suffocated. For the first time he blamed his master. Why should his subordinate bear the responsibility for the trouble he caused? Yanqing felt a headache coming on. Miss Luyu, His Highness wanted to pick you up personally, but Miss Jiang came to him at the last minute, so His Highness asked me to come first. It's not good to live in Wind Lotus Garden. Why don't you come with me first? Chu Liwei crossed her arms and smiled faintly. Miss Jiang? Chapter 1059. Rumor had it that Lord Yanqing was a knife in the hands of the saint. With a cold face and a cold heart, he was decisive in killing. Even if he had killed thousands of people and fought on the battlefield, he would still be cold and cruel. But today he knew how to write the word, scared, for the first time. Chu Liwei was smiling, but Yanqing felt a chill down his spine. He felt that he had said something wrong. And it was not just a little wrong but a big mistake. He struggled to say, No, His Highness has something important to discuss with that person. It's not about anything else. Oh. Chu Liwei nodded. It seems that it's really something important. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't come. The consort selection hall is just around the corner. He must be very busy. Yanqing felt that it was useless to keep struggling. He closed his eyes in despair. Ms. Liwei, take it that I'm begging you. Please follow me up first. His Highness will be worried if he doesn't see you later. I'm an outsider. Now I can come to the Yuntian Tower because of my relationship with the Lin family of Dongtian Cliff. Naturally, I have to go with them. How can I just leave like this? Chu Liwei refused without thinking. She didn't have to come because he didn't want to, but she had to go because he wanted her to? How could there be such a good thing in the world? Besides, why can't I see him? In 4 hours the birthday banquet will start. Won't we see him then? But, it's really inconvenient for you to stay here, Yanqing wanted to persuade her again, but when he looked up and saw Chu Liui's faint smile, he swallowed the rest of his words and changed the topic. Then I'll listen to you. If there's anything, just let me know. Chu Liwei waved his hand. Okay, since you've said it out loud, I'll see what I can do. Let's go. Although Chu Liwei urged her to leave, Yanqing still respectfully sent her back to her previous place. When the two of them arrived at the door of the room, everyone in the room heard the commotion and looked over. Then, I'll leave first. After Yanqing finished speaking and saw Chu Liwei nod, she turned around and left. After taking a step forward, he turned back to look at Hu Yang. You must take good care of Miss Dugu and the others. Hu Yang hurriedly said, I understand. Rest assured, Madam Yanqing. Yanqing nodded. Because he failed to invite Chu Liwei up, he left with a heavy heart. On the other hand, Chu Liui's expression remained the same. He walked straight to a nearby chair and sat down as if nothing had happened. This contrast was even more shocking to the crowd. Miss Dugu, are you satisfied with this place? Hu Yang carefully asked. In truth, he had been very polite to Lin Tianfeng and the others, but now he was even more respectful to Chu Liwei. Madame Yanqing had said to take good care of these people before she left, but who couldn't tell that she was referring to Duguyu? Even a ghost wouldn't believe that there was no relationship between them. Chu Liwei looked around and smiled. It's pretty good. In the eyes of Hu Yang, Yanqing and the others, this place might not be good enough, but in reality, it was more luxurious and noble than most of the palaces she had seen before. Moreover, it wasn't the exaggerated kind of grandeur, but the kind of nobility that only a top-notch family with a deep foundation and a long history could exude. No wonder Rongxiu was so rich. With such a large family fortune, why worry about money? Hu Yang's impression of Chu Liwei improved. It was fine that she didn't know about Madame Yanqing's identity, but now that she didn't intend to use this relationship to her own benefit. Moreover, her attitude was as amiable as before. How rare. The smile on his face became more genuine. That's good. I'll be staying next door. If there's anything you need, just tell me. With that, he clasped his hands at Chu Liwei, Lin Tianfeng, and the others before leaving. The remaining people all looked at Chu Liwei with different expressions. Chu Liwei raised her gaze slightly and looked at the others. She smiled and said, Why is everyone looking at me like that? What do you think? Miss Dugu, I didn't expect that you and Madame Yanqing would have such fate. The girls were more simple-minded and didn't have so many scruples, so they simply spoke directly. How did you know each other? Chu Liwei sipped her tea and said slowly, It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. There's nothing much to say about it. Could it be that she actually knew him because of his master? Hearing this ambiguous answer, the girls looked at each other in dismay. somewhat disappointed. It was as good as not saying anything. Alright, it's getting late. His Highness the Saint's birthday banquet is about to begin. You can all go and prepare yourselves. Lin Tianfeng suddenly said. With his reminder, the girls suddenly came to their senses. That's right. The main reason they came here was the consort selection ceremony. In a while, the carefully selected noble ladies of each tribe would all appear together. At that time, naturally, there would be a competition for beauty. Although they knew that they had no hope of being selected, they still had to prepare carefully so as not to embarrass Cave Heaven Cliff. The girls excused themselves and left together. Lin Mo said to the two remaining elders. Then let's go first. Lu Ruhai frowned and glanced at Chu Luiyue. Sensing his gaze, Chu Luiyue turned her gaze. The two looked at each other for a moment. Lu Ruhai was the first to look away. With a cold snort, he waved his sleeves and walked out. Lin Mo coughed awkwardly and tried to persuade Chu Luiyue. Miss Dugu, don't worry. Ruhai is just a little hot-tempered. He doesn't mean to target you, so don't mind him. Even if he did have some thoughts before, now that he knew that Duguyu was acquainted with Lord Yanqing, he should have dismissed them. Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents. Thank you for your concern, Elder Lin Mo. I know all of this. Soon only Lin Tianfeng and his son Chu Luiyue and Debao were left in the room. Lin Tianfeng looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated gaze, as if he wanted to say something but stopped. Patriarch Lin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Chu Luiyue said directly. Lin Tianfeng paused. Miss Dugu, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel that this matter is really strange. You and that Lord Yanqing. Speaking of this, he glanced at Debao, who had been so quiet that it was as if he didn't exist, and a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. Patriarch Lin, if you have something to say, then just say it. If I can listen, so can Debao. Hearing her words, Lin Tianfeng gritted his teeth. Actually, what I want to ask is Lord Yanqing the person Miss Dugu mentioned before? That is, Debao's birth, crack. Debao split the table next to him in half. Chapter 1060. Cough. Chu Luiyue didn't expect Lin Tianfeng to think that way. She almost couldn't breathe properly. Hearing this, she knew that something was wrong and quickly grabbed Debao's other hand. Debao. Dugu Mabao immediately calmed down when her soft hand covered his slightly cold one. He glanced at Lin Tianfeng, his eyes extremely cold. A cold glint flashed through those devilish purple eyes. Lin Tianfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart, as if a chill had risen from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. But Dugu Mabao's face was immediately pushed away by Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked at him in fear. Master, are you really not afraid of your identity being exposed? Dugu Mabao's eyes flashed. He's asking for death. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. He didn't do it on purpose. I'll explain it for you later. Tell me, what's the point of looking at him like that, other than arousing suspicion? I can kill him. Dugu Mabao didn't speak, but his expression was extremely serious. As long as he wanted to, Lin Tianfeng would definitely not be able to leave alive. Chu Luiyue, master is master. Lin Tianfeng was the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff, and he was a powerhouse who had completely entered the realm of the gods. But Dugu Mabao didn't seem to care at all. Chu Luiyue knew him too well. If he said that he could kill Lin Tianfeng with his gaze, then he could definitely do it. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and quickly leaned over to his ear, warning him in an extremely weak voice. If you don't cooperate, I'll spank you in public. Dugu Mabao suddenly looked up, but Chu Luiyue pressed him on the shoulder. Dugu Mabao. Master Lin, don't mind him. This child is more sensitive and precocious. It's inevitable that he would get emotional when he heard this. It's my fault, I didn't think it through before. Chu Luiyue explained as he restrained Dugu Mabao. Also that, you've really misunderstood. Yanqing and I. Master, it's not what you think. Lin Tianfeng was skeptical. If it wasn't this relationship, then what relationship could it be? Lord Yanqing was famous for being a cold-faced king of hell. If they had only met a few times, why would it be like this? Moreover, his gaze landed on the table that had been shattered by Dugu Mabao, and his heart still palpitated. How could this be the strength of a 3-year-old child? Moreover, he had clearly sensed a ghastly killing intent just now. Father, S's. Lin Zhifei suddenly said. Lin Tianfeng's tired? That's right. After running around for so long, your body can't take it for the time being. Then you should rest first. I won't disturb you. After he finished speaking, he looked at Chu Luiyue questioningly. Lin Zhifei said, I'd like to ask Miss Dugu to stay and discuss the follow-up treatment. Lin Tianfeng realized that his son wanted to chase him out, so he didn't say anything more and left after a few words of advice. After he left, the room calmed down again. Chu Luiyue then let go of Dugu Mabao. Dugu Mabao was no longer angry. He still had a cold expression on his face, but he didn't make a move in the end. "Miss Dugu, please forgive my father for offending you just now," Lin Qifei said. Chu Luiyue waved his hand. "It's nothing. Master Lin is also concerned about helping me. I understand. It's just that Master Yanqing and I—" Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile bitterly. She never thought that things would develop in such a way. "Fourth young master, you don't think so too, do you?" Lin Qifei shook his head. "I believe Miss Dugu's words. He is not the person you're looking for." Chu Luiyue looked at him with some surprise. "Oh, fourth young master, why are you so sure?" Thinking back to what happened just now, it seemed that it was easy to misunderstand. But Lin Qifei's tone seemed to be very certain. Lin Qifei smiled faintly. Intuition. The atmosphere between the two of them was indeed unusual. It wasn't an ordinary friendship that they had met a few times, but it was definitely not what Lin Tianfeng had guessed. The main reason why he was so sure was actually because of her. When she saw Master Yanqing, her eyes didn't shine brightly. It was completely different from the way she looked when she mentioned that person that day. So, the person she was looking for was definitely someone else. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled slightly. Lin Qifei was much smarter and sharper than Lin Tianfeng. "Actually, if Miss Dugu really wants to find that person, why don't you just ask Master Yanqing for help? His status in the Yintian Tower is not low. If he agrees to help, it should save a lot of effort." Lin Qifei didn't intend to ask about the matter between Chu Luiyue and Yanqing, so he went back to the topic. Chu Luiyue rested her chin on one hand, looking thoughtful. After a moment she laughed. "That's not necessary. His Highness the Son of God's banquet is about to start. Everyone should be there by then. I think we should be able to find him. This was his birthday banquet, and also his concubine selection hall. You should be there, right?" 2 hours passed quickly. Chu Luiyue was adjusting her breath in her room when she suddenly heard the deep and melodious sound of a bell coming from outside. Dong! The sound of the bell quickly spread and fell clearly into everyone's ears. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were as bright as the stars. She looked outside through the window. The birthday banquet was about to begin. Digression. Continued at 6 p.m., the list of winners of the August-related activities. 1. Xiaoxiang Academy Star of the Monthly Votes. A Pack of Little Demons, 42 votes. Star of the Review. Memories Yen Io 2. QQ Reading Star of the Review. Yinyu Tonglu, 155 votes. Star of the Review. Ice Cream, Xiaojiu. Inseparable friends on the above list. Please add the group in 3 days and privately contact the group leader to receive the related gifts. Chapter 1061. Knock knock. Hu Yang's voice came from outside the door. "Miss Dugu, it's time for us to set off." "Coming." Chu Luiyue replied and turned to look at Dugu Mabao. "Let's go, Dabeo?" Dugu Mabao was sitting with his back facing her. He didn't move when he heard that, and his small back view exuded a cold aura. Chu Luiyue coughed and walked over. From the side, Dugu Mabao had his arms crossed and his eyes closed. His thick eyelashes were slightly curled. Although his small face was cold, his skin was still translucent, and he looked adorable. After they came back, Dugu Mabao had been in this position for 4 whole hours without moving. Chu Luiyue secretly admired his composure. At the same time, she thought that this man was very difficult to coax. However, looking at him like this, it was hard for anyone to really get angry. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat and she softened her voice. "I promise that I'll clarify everything this time, okay? Don't you want to clarify these things in front of everyone?" Dugu Mabao finally opened his eyes. His devilish purple eyes were as clear as jade. "Really? Of course." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. "I can't possibly watch my own fiancé become someone else's husband, right? Then what do you want to do?" Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes and sized her up. With her current inconspicuous appearance, she probably wouldn't be able to do anything even if she went. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but ruffle his hair, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. "Don't ask about this first. I have my own plans." When Chu Luiyue walked out, Lin Tianfeng and the others were already waiting in the courtyard. The girls had also dressed up meticulously, and they looked even more charming than before. "Miss Dugu, why didn't you change your clothes?" a girl asked curiously. Chu Luiyue chuckled. "Why should I change my clothes? This? "This is His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet," the woman mumbled. Even if Duguyu wasn't going to participate in the consort selection hall, but for such an occasion shouldn't she dress up grandly? But seeing that she didn't seem to care, they didn't say anything more. With her ordinary appearance, so what if she changed into a set of luxurious clothes? An ear-piercing voice of mockery rang out. Chu Luiyue and the others looked over. He saw a group of people walking towards him from the main hall. The leader was a burly middle-aged man. Beside him was a soldier in black armor. The totem of the Yuntian Tower was tattooed on the left side of his chest. He was dressed the same as Hu Yang, so it was obvious that he was of the same status as Hu Yang. Behind the two of them were a few old men and a few women. Without a doubt, these people were also wearing exquisite makeup. From her hair to her fingernails, she had put in a lot of effort. The woman who had spoken earlier was the one who had confronted Chu Luiyue at the beginning. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and sneered. "It's better for some people to know their own limits." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. She hadn't said that she was going to participate in the consort selection hall, but the other party was so insistent. Clearly they were still holding a grudge against her for laughing at them earlier. They also thought that they were easy to bully from Grotto Heaven Cliff, so they were so bold. Not to mention whether she was good-looking or not, just her character alone was enough to annoy people. Before Chu Luiyue could retort, Hu Yang had already stepped forward and stared at the woman. "Miss Han Zishu, please be careful with your words." Han Zishu looked at Hu Yang in surprise. What was going on? This Hu Yang actually dared to speak to her like that in front of so many people? He was clearly very humble earlier. The Valley Master of the Cold Mountain Valley, xuanhuan, also frowned but quickly returned to normal. "Ah, Lord Hu Yang, please don't take offense. My daughter has always been outspoken. If she has offended you, please forgive her," Hu Yang said indifferently. "Whether she is being outspoken or intentionally slandering you, everyone knows in their hearts. Valley Master Han, this is the Yuntian Tower after all, not the Cold Mountain Valley. If your daughter still can't control her temper, then I'm afraid she won't gain the favor of His Highness Saint." "You?" Han Zishu's face turned pale with anger. "How dare you curse me?" Hu Yang snorted. "Don't think too much. I'm just reminding you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not." This time, even Han Quan's expression didn't look good. He was just casually teasing them, but who knew that Hu Yang would be so ungrateful? He dared to challenge them in public. "Hu Yang, everyone here is a guest. What are you doing?" The soldier standing next to Han Quan frowned and spoke in a commanding tone. "Hurry up and apologize to Valley Master Han and Miss Han." Hu Yang snorted and ignored him. He looked at Lin Tianfeng and the others. "Family Master Lin, Miss Dugu, this way please." Then the group really left, leaving the people in the Cold Mountain Valley to wait. How did he become so arrogant all of a sudden? Han Quan couldn't help but ask angrily. "Lord Qinting, he wasn't like this when he saw you before." Qinting also frowned. Although he and Hu Yang were at the same level, he had some connections with the higher-ups, so he was slightly better off than Hu Yang. Usually Hu Yang would be very polite when they met. What was wrong with him today? Why was he so stubborn? Does he think that those from Heavenly Cave Cliff have a chance to be chosen by His Highness Saint? Han Zishu was so angry that she laughed. When Qinting heard this, he immediately said, "How is that possible? Heavenly Cave Cliff is the weakest among all the tribes. His Highness Saint won't even look at them, let alone the others." "Forget it. Since he's so arrogant now, we'll let him go first. In the future, we'll have a chance to get back at him," Han Quan said in a deep voice. "Let's go quickly. We can't be late for His Highness Saint's birthday banquet." The banquet was held on the highest peak of the main island, Upstart Peak. Upstart Peak is the most sacred place of the Yuntian Tower. It's heavily guarded and there are strict rules for entry and exit. Other than the family master, His Highness Saint, and the various elders, anyone who wants to enter Upstart Peak has to get permission. Hu Yang explained as he led the group up the stairs. "There are 2 halls on Upstart Peak. Do you see the one at the middle of the mountain? That's the Ethereal Hall, the place where the banquet will be held today. The Sacrificial God Hall occupies a huge area and has a complicated layout. When we enter later, you must follow me closely and don't wander around." The few of them followed his gaze and saw a majestic palace at the middle of the mountain. At this moment, they could vaguely see the square in front of the palace. It was very lively and crowded. "What's at the top of the mountain?" Chu Luiyue suddenly looked at the palace at the top of the mountain and asked. The sun was setting in the west, and the brilliant light shrouded the black palace. It was so tall that it seemed unreachable. Chapter 1062. Hu Yang's face immediately turned solemn and respectful. That's the sacrificial god hall. His Highness the Holy Sun lived there. Compared to the ethereal hall, the sacrificial god hall is even more majestic. Other than His Holiness and his trusted aides, no one else is allowed to approach the sacrificial god hall. Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes. As expected, that was where Rongxiu lived. It was probably where he had been staying for the past few years as well. Actually, that used to be the seat of the clan head, but the clan head is currently in seclusion. His Holiness is in charge of the clan affairs, so Hu Yang didn't continue speaking, but everyone understood what he was trying to say. In truth, the current Holy Sun was already the most esteemed existence in the Yuntian Tower. Everyone stared at the Black Palace with grim expressions. Even from such a distance, they could still feel the overwhelming pressure emanating from it. Chu Luiyue suddenly chuckled softly. I see. I'm sure Your Highness the Holy Sun must be very busy? Hu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He quickly scanned the surroundings to make sure that no one was around before heaving a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Chu Luiyue with a conflicted expression. Miss Dugu, we're about to reach the ethereal hall, so I hope that you don't say such things in the future lest you get into trouble. Seeing the anxious look on Hu Yang's face, Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. I understand. Then the group continued to move forward. Roughly 15 minutes later, Hu Yang finally came to a stop. They were currently standing on a mountain beside the ascension peak, and their location was almost at the same level as the ethereal hall. Hu Yang took out his white jade token and infused a surge of origin energy into it. The token glowed brightly. The head of the Lin clan has arrived. It did not take long for a silvery streak of light to fly over from the ethereal hall. It was as if a galaxy had descended from the heavens. It was a dazzling sight. Under the darkening sky, it was exceptionally beautiful. At the same time, a similar streak of light flew out from Hu Yang's white jade token and connected with the silver streak of light. Of course, compared to the one that had flown over from the ethereal hall, Hu Yang's was far inferior. It was obvious that the person in charge of receiving them was even stronger than Hu Yang. Hu Yang was the first to jump up and put away the token. Everyone please. Apart from this group of people, there were a few other similarly gorgeous streams of flowing light that transformed into bridges all around Upstart Peak. Obviously, they were also people from other tribes who had come to attend the banquet. The closer Chu Luiyue got to the ethereal hall, the clearer he could feel the overwhelming pressure coming from the ethereal hall. She looked over. In front of the ethereal hall was a massive square paved with white jade. On one side of the square, near the cliff, a large black bell floated quietly. The sound of the bell just now seemed to have come from here. Around the square, soldiers in black armor were lined up neatly. Although there were many people coming and going, it was very orderly. Obviously, no matter what kind of background they came from, they all became well-behaved and followed the rules here. Moreover, at a glance, they were all dressed in luxurious brocade robes and were extremely solemn. The group finally landed on the ground. Welcome Clan Head Lin. As soon as their feet touched the ground, someone immediately rushed forward to welcome them. The person who had just arrived seemed to be in his 30s. Dressed in black armor, he had a thin face but a pair of spirited eyes. He looked very capable. His clothes were the same as Hu Yang's, but the aura he emanated was much stronger. Even Qin Ting couldn't compare to him. It was no wonder why he was able to work here. Just as Chu Luiyue was thinking about this, the other party suddenly turned to look at her. You must be Miss Dugu, right? Chu Luiyue was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. From the looks of it, Yan Qing had already informed him about this matter. She nodded with a smile. That's right. A smile surfaced on the man's face. It's good that you're here. The seats have already been arranged for you. Please come in. After saying those words, he turned around and led the way. Lin Tianfeng and the others couldn't help but glance at Chu Luiyue. However, Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change at all. She simply raised her eyebrows and followed him in. The main hall of the ethereal hall was resplendent and majestic. In the main hall there was a throne carved out of black jade, giving it a dignified air. Below it, there were several white jade tables arranged neatly in the middle, and the crowd was seated on both sides. The various tribes seemed to have arranged their seats in advance, and the names of their respective tribes were written on the side of each table. Behind each table there were a few seats left. Obviously, they were reserved for the people of the various clans who came together. At this moment, more than half of the seats in the main hall were already filled. The crowd was either chatting with one another or chatting with one another privately. It was a lively atmosphere, but there was a hint of restraint in it. From time to time, many people would look outside the hall. Clearly they were waiting for the most important person of the night. As for the arrival of Lin Tianfeng and the others, it didn't cause too much of a commotion. Most people only glanced in their direction for a moment before retracting their gazes. Grotto Heaven Cliff? There was nothing to worry about. Thus, Chu Luiyue and the rest were led by the soldier to their table in a very low-key manner. Clan Head Lin, this is the seat of the Grotto Heaven Cliff. Please take a seat. However, Lin Tianfeng didn't move. Instead, he looked at the soldier doubtfully. Here? Are you kidding me? This is the first row. One must know that those who were able to sit in the first row in such an occasion were the top tribes. Those like the Grotto Heaven Cliff would usually be seated in the last row, in an inconspicuous corner. But now, wasn't this seat a little too conspicuous? Even if it was on account of Lord Yanqing, it didn't seem appropriate for them to do so. Even Hu Yang was taken aback and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter?" He quickly asked, "Are you sure it's here?" "Of course I'm sure." The soldier chuckled. "Everyone don't worry. We won't make a mistake in such matters." Lin Tianfeng subconsciously glanced at Chu Luiyue. This position, it should be thanks to her fortune. Since they arranged it, let's just sit down. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she walked over with a relaxed expression. Lin Tianfeng could only nod and lead the rest of the people to sit down rather nervously. As soon as they sat down, the hall quickly quieted down. Everyone looked over with different expressions in their eyes. Obviously, everyone could tell that something was wrong. Lin Tianfeng coughed and looked at Chu Luiyue inquiringly. He lowered his voice. "Miss Dugu, what exactly are you and Lord Yanqing? His Highness the Chosen One has arrived." Suddenly, a loud and clear voice transmitted over. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She looked up. A man appeared outside the hall. He was dressed in a black brocade robe. He was tall and slender, and his bones were clear and elegant. The flowing light in the hall reflected on his face, making him the most beautiful man in the world. Before he stood still, he looked at the people in the hall as if he was looking for something. As if they were telepathic, he looked straight in Chu Luiyue's direction. A ripple flashed across his deep and pure phoenix eyes. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows were like the spring wind melting snow, containing nostalgia and a smile. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be hit by something soft. Her lips moved slightly. She almost wanted to call out to him directly. At this moment, a woman's voice sounded. "Your Highness, why are you walking so fast? I can't keep up." Chapter 1063. Immediately after, a slender woman walked over leisurely. It was already dark outside. She was dressed in a white dress with a blue jade belt around her slender waist. Her hair was like a cloud, and her hair was like a cloud. Especially her eyes, which were pure and moving, as gentle as water. Her red lips were curled up with a hint of playfulness. Her looks and charm could be considered stunning. Unfortunately, compared to the man in front of her, she seemed a little dull. The crowd first saw Rong Xiu's immortal-like appearance. When they looked at the others, they were not as stunned. However, compared to the many women in the hall, she was obviously better. When she saw the person, Chu Luiyue narrowed her starry eyes slightly and smiled playfully. "So this is the rumored eldest young lady Jiang?" Rong Xiu did not seem to hear her. He strode into the hall with his long legs. Jiang Jiwan was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly followed him. Earlier on, she had been discussing with Rong Xiu about the academy. Later on, Yanqing returned and said something to Rong Xiu. After that, Rong Xiu was very absent-minded. If not for the fact that the academy was involved, he would have gotten up and left long ago. Until just now, when the banquet was about to start, he came straight here. He looked as if he was worried about being late. But this was the strangest thing. Rong Xiu was the noble saint. Even if he asked these people to wait here for a few hours, they would not dare to say anything. Moreover, he had always been a strategist. He would never do this. No matter what, he seemed to be in a hurry to do something. Jiang Ziyuan didn't have time to ask clearly before she hurried to follow him. Almost subconsciously, she followed Rong Xiu's line of sight and looked into the hall. Unfortunately, there were too many people in the hall. She could not see clearly who Rong Xiu was looking at. The crowd in the hall finally reacted and hurriedly got up to bow. "Greetings, Your Highness the Saint." Most of the tribe leaders and family heads had already seen Rong Xiu before. At this time they were still calm. However, for many of the women who came with them, it was their first time seeing the rumored saint. Many people blushed and stared blankly at the man who was striding over. Honorable, arrogant, It was rumored that His Highness the Saint was extremely talented and powerful. He was decisive in killing and had the power to kill. Therefore, most people's first impression of him was reverence. However, when they saw him with their own eyes, they realized that His Highness the Saint was unparalleled in the world. Just his face alone was enough to make countless women's hearts flutter. Moreover, he held a high position and held power. How many women wouldn't be moved by such a man? Then, under the gazes of countless pairs of eyes, Rongxiu suddenly took a step and walked toward a certain spot. Thus, everyone's gazes followed his gaze. Yes. Why do I feel like His Highness the Saint is coming toward us? A woman sitting next to Chu Liwei muttered with a red face and wide eyes. How is that possible? What kind of person is His Highness the Saint? How could he wait? He really is coming here. He seems to be looking at someone. Could he be looking at us? The remaining two women also became excited. Only Chu Liwei lowered his eyes and casually poured himself a glass of wine. Family head Lin. Rongxiu stood in front of Lin Tianfeng and said calmly, "Why, Your Highness?" Lin Tianfeng was also shocked and hurriedly got up. Lin Tianfeng of Grotto Heaven Cliff greets His Highness the Saint. Lin Tianfeng was a god-level powerhouse and the head of a cliff, so his aura was not weak. But now, standing in front of Rongxiu, he seemed much smaller and weaker, and his aura was much weaker. Lin Tianfeng did not even dare to look at the man in front of him. The noble aura he exuded after years of being in a high position was not something ordinary people could compare to. Rongxiu smiled faintly with one hand behind his back. Family head Lin, you must be tired from traveling all the way here, right? The man's voice was deep and pleasant. However, there was a deathly silence in the hall. Almost everyone's face was instantly filled with shock. What did His Highness the Saint just say? He actually asked Lin Tianfeng if he was tired. Which of the tribes present did not come from afar? Which one of them was not tired? Why did he only ask Lin Tianfeng? Grotto Heaven Cliff had always been ranked last among the tribes. Usually, they would not even have the chance to step forward on such occasions. What was going on today? Not only were they arranged to sit in the first row, but His Highness the Saint even came to ask? What kind of honor was this? Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. We are not tired. Lin Tianfeng was also stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses and hurriedly replied. It is already a great honor for us to be able to attend His Highness' birthday banquet. This was not an exaggeration. Among the tribes, there were not many who were qualified to come to Yuntian Tower. Lin Tianfeng had been here before, but he had always stood in a corner and was basically a forgotten, transparent existence. He had never been the center of attention like now. Even His Highness the Saint took the initiative to greet him. All of this happened too suddenly. Even though Lin Tianfeng was a person who had seen many storms, his heart was filled with nervousness and apprehension. Family head Lin, don't be nervous. I was just asking casually. I don't mean anything else. Rongxiu's thin lips curved slightly, then his gaze fell on the people behind Lin Tianfeng. These people must have come with the Lin family's patriarch. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly turned his head and winked at them. The people who had not come back to their senses before stood up and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness the Saint. One of the girls, perhaps because she was too nervous, even moved the table in front of her. Chu Liwei had just poured wine, but before he could pick it up, half the cup was spilled. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows. These girls are all from Grotto Heaven Cliff? Lin Tianfeng was shocked and immediately nodded, but then he hurriedly said, These three are, but Miss Dugu is not. Rongxiu's eyes flashed with interest. Miss Dugu? Lin Tianfeng instinctively turned his head and saw that Chu Liwei was the only one who was still sitting while the others were standing and bowing. She didn't even raise her head, but was pouring wine for herself. Lin Tianfeng's eyes twitched fiercely. What time is it now? She still has the leisure to drink. Does she know that this is His Highness the Saint? Miss Dugu doesn't seem to be happy to see I? Chu Liwei then looked up and smiled slightly. Her pair of starry eyes were even brighter and more intoxicating than the wine that reflected the lights in her cup. She smiled. Your Highness the Saint, don't misunderstand. I just didn't see you just now. Chapter 1064. Gasps could be heard coming from the hall. Where did this woman come from? How dare she speak to the saint in such a manner? Just as everyone held their breaths and waited for the saint's thunderous response, he suddenly nodded and asked seriously, Do you see it now? His voice was normal. Not only was there no anger, but there was also a rare sense of patience. Everyone was speechless. Your Highness, wake up. What are you doing? Chu Luiyue gently swirled her wine glass, tilted her head and scrutinized him from head to toe. Then she slowly nodded. I see it. Yes. After being separated for so long they finally met. But she did not expect to meet him in such a place and with such an identity. The current Rongxiu was different from the previous Rongxiu. In the past he was always dressed in white, elegant and immortal-like. But now, he had changed into a black robe, and instantly had a frightening majesty and vigor. Chu Luiyue had only seen him like this once. It was the first day she heard him being addressed as the saint. It was also from then on that Chu Luiyue gradually realized that Rongxiu was definitely not what he appeared to be. She had expected Rongxiu's background to be extremely extraordinary, but she did not expect it to be so shocking. Your Highness is indeed handsome and charming, enough to attract the hearts of countless women in the world. Chu Luiyue said with a half-smile. Your Highness, you know each other? Xuanhuan finally could not help but ask behind him. Her eyes wandered back and forth between the two of them, and a subtle sense of discomfort welled up in her heart. Rongxiu's behavior was really not right. All these years he had not been close to women, and he did not even bother to talk to them. Whether it was the Yuntian Tower or the people of the various tribes, they had all tried countless times to persuade him to get married. But he had never agreed. This time, it was probably because he really couldn't delay it any longer, so he nodded and held this concubine selection ceremony. Although there was a huge commotion this time, Jiang Jiwan knew very well that Rongxiu definitely did not intend to choose 3 wives and 4 concubines. His attitude towards her was even more impatient than before. But now he actually said such words to another woman? Most importantly, this woman's appearance was ordinary, and she didn't seem to be of high birth. What was His Highness thinking? Rongxiu's voice was calm, but he did not deny it. Of course. How could he not recognize his own wife, his own princess consort, and his own fiancée? In the past, I was fortunate enough to see the Holy Sun's face a few times. Chu Luiyue smiled. Rongxiu's brows twitched. These words? She clearly didn't want to have anything to do with him? Your Highness, today is your birthday banquet, and also the concubine selection ceremony. Don't waste your time here. Let's get started quickly. Chu Luiyue urged. Rongxiu's chest tightened. But in front of so many people, he couldn't say anything for the time being. Then, Miss Dugu, please do as you please. Just treat it as your own home. After that, he took a deep look at Chu Luiyue, then turned around and walked up to the stage. Hey, Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan looked at Rongxiu and then at Chu Luiyue. What was going on? Ziyuan, come back quickly. At this moment, Jiang Hetian suddenly opened his mouth and waved at Jiang Jiwan. It was really embarrassing for her to stand there alone in front of so many people. Moreover, anyone with eyes could see that Rongxiu treated her very coldly. After entering, he didn't even look at her. Jiang Hetian's heart ached for his daughter, so he hurriedly called her back. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, then obediently walked over to him and sat behind him. That was the first seat in the first row from the left. It was obvious that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a high status. After Rongxiu left, Lin Tianfeng finally let out the breath he had been holding in. He hurriedly turned to look at Chu Luiyue, his brows furrowed. His gaze was complicated, as if he had a lot to say but didn't know where to start. Miss Dugu, you know His Highness the Son of God. Why didn't you say so before? Lin Tianfeng finally spat out a sentence. Chu Luiyue blinked. You didn't ask. Lin Tianfeng? He wouldn't ask such a question unless his brain was fried, right? Who would have thought that an ordinary girl from another world would know the high and mighty Son of God? Who could? No wonder. Lin Zhifei, who was standing aside, suddenly understood something. No wonder Yanqing treated her like that. He had previously felt that Yanqing's politeness to her, even a hint of obedience, was abnormal. Now he finally understood. The person she knew was the saint. Lin Zhifei suddenly remembered that when she was at the Lin residence, she had once asked if His Highness the Son of God was called Rongxiu. At that time, Lin Tianfeng had even told her not to call the Son of God by his name. At that time, he had thought that she had called out the Son of God's name because she had just arrived and was reckless and ignorant. Now that he thought about it, it was because she had placed the Son of God on the same level from the beginning. That was why her tone was so calm and natural. Oh my God. Miss Dugu, you actually know His Highness the Son of God. No wonder he came over to talk to us just now. The girls beside her exclaimed in admiration, their faces full of envy. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and said, Yes, I didn't know his identity before, so I didn't say anything. I see. The girls didn't doubt her and nodded repeatedly. I knew it was strange that we could sit in the first row. His Highness the Son of God must have known that you were coming and specially arranged it. Yes. In that case you must be very familiar with him, right? Then do you know what kind of girl His Highness the Son of God likes? Chu Luiyue picked up the wine and downed it in one gulp. The burning sensation instantly flowed into her lungs from between her lips and teeth. Almost half of her body was burning up. She rested her chin on one hand and tapped her chin with her slender and fair fingers. The girl he likes. Won't we know when the consort selection ceremony starts? Lin Tianfeng listened to her calm and collected tone, feeling both fortunate and troubled at the same time. Fortunately, they had been treating Duguyu well during this period and didn't offend her. What troubled him was that she didn't seem to realize how shocking it was to be friends with His Highness the Son of God. What did it mean? Most importantly, she didn't seem to be worried about offending the Son of God at all. Listen to what she said just now. He wouldn't dare to say it even if he had 10 guts. But she said it. She didn't intend to save any face for His Highness the Son of God. Left with no choice, Lin Tianfeng could only lower his voice. Miss Dugu, we can't thank you enough for basking in your glory today. Please be careful in the future. Don't say anything like that again, lest you offend His Highness the Son of God. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Who offended who now? Chapter 1065. Your Highness, are you all right? After Rong Xiu walked over, Yuemo couldn't help but ask in a low voice. It was too scary. The scene just now was too scary. Miss Lu Yu's actions were too ruthless. She didn't give His Highness any leeway in front of so many people. However, His Highness couldn't bear to do anything to her and could only let her do whatever she wanted. On the other side, Yanqing was expressionless. Hearing this, he couldn't help but snort in his heart. Who could he blame for his own sins? He had already advised His Highness to say it, but he refused. Now look, she came straight to his door. And then? He said he would pick her up personally, but he didn't go in the end. It would be strange if that person wasn't angry. Rong Xiu's expression was normal. Just follow the procedure. Yuemo hurriedly agreed. Yes. After saying that, seeing that His Highness didn't seem to have any other plans, Yuemo anxiously nudged Yanqing with his elbow. Hey, didn't His Highness ask you to pick up Miss Lu Yu? Why did she come with the Lin family in the end? Look at how angry that person is now. If you had done it well, His Highness wouldn't have fallen to such a state now? Yanqing sneered. What was the use of him going? He had already knelt on one knee and begged, but that person was still indifferent. In the end, wasn't it because His Highness was in the wrong first? So what if he was cannon fodder? Could he appease that person by himself? Even His Highness couldn't do it, let alone him. In the end, His Highness should be the one suffering this. Seeing that His Highness was calm as usual and Yanqing was indifferent, Yuemo scratched his head and felt a headache coming on. After thinking for a while, he couldn't think of anything and could only sigh in his heart. Sigh. Forget it. Who cares so much? Since His Highness wasn't in a hurry, he must have a way to deal with it, right? Then Yuemo put these thoughts aside and began to busy himself with the banquet. Rong Xiu came earlier than expected. After he came in, other tribes arrived one after another. Because of his existence, the atmosphere in the hall was clearly more solemn than before. Even though he had already told them to be casual, they didn't dare to be casual. Especially the young ladies, all of them competed in beauty and were dignified and generous. Every single word and action of theirs was extremely well behaved, as if they were afraid of making a mistake and drawing the annoyance of the person above them. Behind them, Cold Mountain Valley and the others also arrived. After entering, the group of people first saw Rong Xiu sitting at the head of the table. Only then did they realize that they were late and hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. Rong Xiu didn't mind and let them sit down. However, the faces of Han Quan and the others were still pale. They all knew very well that with such a big mistake, they probably didn't have any more chances. Only Han Zishu and a few others did not react for a while. They were only focused on Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table. He had the grace of a dragon and the grace of a phoenix, a clear and evildoer. It was normal for such a person to be tempted. It was only when Rong Xiu looked over with a tinge of coldness in his eyes that the overwhelming suppression suddenly attacked. Only then did the few of them finally wake up. If you don't want your eyes, just say so, Rong Xiu said coldly. Only then did Han Zishu and the others hurriedly lower their heads and beg for mercy. This scene made everyone in the hall feel very complicated. Duguyu in front said that she didn't see him, but he insisted on letting her see. Now that the few women from Cold Mountain Valley were staring at him in a daze, he actually wanted to dig out their eyeballs. Actually, it wasn't that His Highness Saint had never done such a thing before. However, with the previous incident as a foil, this incident was too strange. Why was there such a huge difference between people? After much persuasion, the group from Cold Mountain Valley finally begged for forgiveness and went to the corner behind the crowd helplessly. At this moment they saw that Lin Tianfeng and the others were actually sitting in the first row. Han Zishu was shocked. Just as she was about to speak, Han Quan held her back. Now that they couldn't even take care of themselves, how could they care about others? Moreover, Han Zishu and the others didn't know, but Han Quan and Chen Ting knew the pros and cons. The fact that Lin Tianfeng and the others could sit here peacefully already explained too many things. Even if they wanted to find trouble with them, they had to ask about the situation first. Thus, the group of people went down sullenly just like that. Humph, let's see how arrogant they can be this time. Miss Dugu, it's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, we would have been bullied by them again. The few women from Grotto Heaven Cliff felt relieved. Now that everyone knows that you and His Highness Saint know each other, no one will dare to provoke you in the future. Chu Luiyue smiled and glanced at Lu Ruhai, who had been silent all this while. I hope so. After everyone arrived, the banquet officially began. First, the people from each tribe presented their congratulatory gifts to wish His Highness Saint a happy birthday. Piles of flowery words were poured out as if they were free. Chu Luiyue was drowsy listening to them. Rong Xiu glanced at her and saw her lazy and sleepy look. He couldn't help but laugh and interrupt Umo, who was reading the list of gifts. All right. I'll look at these later. Today is not only Ai's birthday, but also the consort selection ceremony. Ai's time to choose a consort, so let's get started. Everyone was taken aback and immediately became excited. This was the highlight of tonight's event. Rong Xiu waved his wrist and handed a booklet to Yan Qing. First, check the name list for the consort selection ceremony. Yes. Yan Qing opened it respectfully and then his face froze. He quickly looked up at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu looked calm. Read it. Yan Qing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. The name list for the consort selection ceremony is as follows. Grotto Heaven Cliff, Lin Miao or Lin Xuanhuan Su Xiaoyan, Dudugiyu. Digression, 6 p.m. Chapter 1066. Dugiyu. Lin Tianfeng and the others were shocked when they heard this name. How could her name be on the list? A young lady beside Chu Luiyue lost her balance and directly dropped the wine cup in her hands onto the floor. Bang! The crisp sound of a jade cup shattering rang out, immediately drawing everyone's gazes over. The hall fell silent. Rong Xiu looked over and raised his eyebrows. Patriarch Lin, what's wrong? Lin Tianfeng hurriedly stood up. Your Highness, this Miss Dugu isn't on the Heavenly Cave Cliffs list. This, oh? Rong Xiu seemed surprised. He raised his voice and said to Yan Qing. Let me have a look. Yan Qing hurriedly presented the booklet with both hands. Rong Xiu took it and scrutinized it. He then looked up and lightly said, I'm sorry. He raised his head and said, Duguyu's name is clearly written on it. If Patriarch Lin doesn't believe me, you can take a look for yourself. Lin Tianfeng choked. How could he not believe His Highness the Holy Sun's words? But this can't be right. The list had been delivered to Rong Xiu before Duguyu went to Heavenly Cave Cliff. Moreover, he knew that Duguyu had brought her child to find her husband. How could he dare to add her name to the list? There must be a mistake. Lin Tianfeng swallowed with difficulty. His face was tense and his body was tense. Even though he had seen his fair share of storms, he was still stunned by this scene. The others present didn't know Duguyu's background, but he did. If someone found out, wouldn't it be, Patriarch Lin, are you saying that the Yuntian Tower made a mistake with this booklet? Rong Xiu leaned back in his chair and asked lazily. Although he spoke casually, how could Lin Tianfeng admit to this? It wasn't like he was tired of living. Why would he publicly criticize the people of Yuntian Tower for their incompetence? I didn't mean that. Lin Tianfeng's voice was much weaker. Rong Xiu smiled and threw the booklet back to Yan Qing. Forget it. This matter can't be explained in a short time. Let's leave it at that for now. It won't be too late to investigate after the matter is over. Everyone? This is your concubine selection list, how can you say it so easily? But since Rong Xiu had already spoken, the others naturally couldn't say anything. What's more, there were many people participating in the consort selection ceremony, so it didn't matter if she was there or not. Such a woman with no background was nothing to worry about. Yan Qing held the booklet and felt her hands burning. He lowered his eyes again and looked at the words Dugiyu that had clearly just been added. His heart was in turmoil. No wonder His Highness wasn't anxious at all. He was waiting here. Rong Xiu's slender and fair fingers tapped on the table. Continue. Yan Qing took a deep breath and was about to continue reading. Han, wait. Yan Qing was abruptly interrupted as soon as he opened his mouth. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The speaker was none other than Jiang Jiwan, who had followed Rong Xiu in just now. She looked at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and frowned slightly. Her face was obviously disapproving. Your Highness, this seems inappropriate. Everyone became quieter. Ziyuan. Jiang Hetian, who was next to her, frowned and called out to her in warning. Jiang Jiwan ignored him. She pursed her lips and continued. Just now, Patriarch Lin has said that Miss Dugu is not a member of Dongtian Cliff. Logically speaking, she is not qualified to be on the list. Your Highness, it's a little inappropriate for you to ignore it, isn't it? Everyone looked at each other. Jiang Jiwan's words were not without reason. Those who could come here were the most outstanding women of their respective tribes. It was indeed strange for Dugiyu to suddenly appear on the list and become one of the candidates. Rong Xiu glanced at her indifferently. Today, not all of the women here are from the main families of the tribes. According to what you said, shouldn't they be removed from the list as well? Jiang Jiwan was speechless and bit her lips. Your Highness, you know I didn't mean that. What does eldest Miss Jiang mean? Only eldest Miss Jiang knows. How would I know? Rong Xiu seemed to smile, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he was alienating her from the inside out. Jiang Jiwan was stunned, and then a trace of embarrassment appeared in her eyes. After seeing Rong Xiu today, she was full of joy, but then she realized that he didn't seem to want to pay attention to her. She didn't take it too seriously because he had always been so cold. But now, in front of so many people, he didn't give her any face at all. Jiang Jiwan felt very wronged. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Hetian spoke up. Your Highness, please forgive me for offending you. He chuckled. Your Highness, you know that this girl was spoiled by the chief when she was young, so she was a little rude. Please forgive me, Your Highness, I will teach her well when we go back. At the mention of the chief, Rong Xiu's eyes darkened and his thin lips curled up. Of course not. It's a pity that the chief is now in seclusion. Otherwise he would be very happy to see Miss Jiang. The smile on Jiang Hetian's face froze. For some reason, the chief had been in seclusion since a few years ago, and he still hadn't come out after so long. During this time, Rong Xiu had completely taken control of the Yuntian Tower. For the past few years he had been avoiding Rong Xiu's limelight, but he didn't expect him to be more domineering than expected. Jiang Hetian smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything else. Father, why don't you let me continue? Jiang Jiwan couldn't help but ask. Jiang Hetian frowned. What else do you want to say? Don't you understand what His Highness the Chosen Saint means? But why? That Dugiyu is clearly not qualified, and even the chief of the Lin family said that he didn't mention her name. Why does Your Highness have to go through so much trouble when it can be solved with just one sentence? Jiang Hetian was getting impatient. Why are you always so hung up on this problem? It's just Dugiyu, isn't it? Even if she joined in, would it affect the final result in any way? Other things aside, just her appearance and figure alone make her no match at all. Is it worth it to quarrel with His Highness over such an insignificant person? Jiang Jiwan was speechless for a moment. As long as you perform well later, you'll be able to get the position of princess consort. There's no one more suitable than you to ascend to this position. Jiang Hetian advised in a sincere and heartfelt manner. Jiang Jiwan could only nod. But for some reason, when she thought of the conversation between His Highness and that woman, she felt a little uneasy. Yan Qing continued. Han, wait. Another voice sounded. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Dugiyu who spoke this time. The corners of her lips curled slightly and she said with a smile. I think eldest young Miss Jiang is right. Your Highness the Chosen Saint, please cross out my name. Chapter 1067. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Yan Qing's heart skipped a beat, and he turned to look at his master. On the throne, Rong Xiu's expression froze for a moment. But that momentary stiffness quickly dissipated. But his eyes gradually became as cold and lonely as a cold lake, and his whole body emitted a shocking chill. He smiled slightly and said softly, What did you say? What did you say? Say it again. The atmosphere became strange. Many people inexplicably felt a dangerous and cold aura. The space seemed to freeze inch by inch. Chu Yue's smile did not change. Just now, Patriarch Lin has already made it very clear that my name is not in the list of candidates. As for why my name appeared on the list, it's actually not important. Your Highness can just cross my name off the list. It's convenient for everyone, isn't it? This kind of excitement doesn't seem very suitable for me to participate. Your Highness, don't you think so? As she spoke, she turned to look at Yanqing. Such a small matter, Your Highness, you don't have to do it yourself. Yanqing can do it for you. Lady Yanqing, please? Yanqing's hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. He was wrong. He should not have invited her on behalf of His Highness from the beginning. Not to mention that he was rejected, it was difficult for him to withdraw now. Why was his life so miserable? He had no choice but to say, I'm of a lowly status and have no right to do so. Rongxiu's eyes were deep. He looked at Chu Liyue as if he wanted to tear him apart and eat him. Are you sure? Yanqing looked at Chu Liyue pleadingly. Please? Of course I'm sure. Chu Liyue's smile deepened. After all, I already have a fiancé. Everyone was in an uproar. So Dugiyu already had a fiancé? Did His Highness know about it? From the looks of it, he probably didn't know, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed to leave her name on the booklet. But to reject the saint in front of him was really a little embarrassing. Lin Tianfeng and the others also looked at Chu Liyue in shock. Fiancé. Not my husband? But Debeo? Just as everyone was whispering, Rongxiu suddenly chuckled and opened his mouth. So what? In an instant, almost all the sounds disappeared. Countless pairs of eyes stared at Rongxiu in astonishment. Then what about it? What did that mean? Jiang Jiwan's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and the feeling of uneasiness grew stronger. At this time, the others present also felt that something was wrong and kept quiet. The air was so tense that it was almost suffocating. Rongxiu didn't seem to notice the crowd that was shocked by his words. He leaned back lazily with a faint smile on his face. As long as you let him stand out and oppose this matter, I will let it go. Treacherous. Chu Liyue secretly gritted his teeth. Han Quan still had a bit of rationality left and hurriedly stopped her. Don't criticize His Highness. Han Zishu shrank back, but her face was still filled with dissatisfaction. I'm just curious. What the hell is going on? I don't know how that bitch bewitched His Highness. Before they could finish their sentence, a young woman in front suddenly turned around. Her makeup was exquisite, and her looks were top-notch. Clearly, she was also here to participate in the consort selection. But at this moment, there was a hint of mockery on her face. She looked at Han Zishu and the others as if she was looking at fools. Don't say things like that. Be careful not to be overheard by others. That Miss Dugu was acquainted with His Highness in the past. If you're not afraid of getting into trouble, go ahead and continue. With that, she turned around with a cold smile. Not only were they late, but they were also brainless. These people in Cold Mountain Valley were really tired of living. Han Zishu and the others were confused. That Dugiyu knew His Highness the Saint? How could it be? In this atmosphere that was almost suffocating, Chu Liyue was the first to recover from her shock. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly smiled. Your Highness, what if I insist on saying no? Digression, it felt good to cheat his wife. It felt good to cheat her all the time. Chapter 1068. Little you, why is your temper still so stubborn? At this moment, a low and old voice suddenly came from outside. Everyone looked toward the door. An elder suddenly came in. There wasn't the slightest bit of origin power fluctuations on his body, but the inexplicable aura around him caused people to secretly feel reverence. This was definitely a top-notch expert. Chu Liyue was slightly stunned. The reason for that was because she knew that old man. 36 Respected Elder Ming, why are you here? Rongxiu was about to stand up and welcome him personally when 36 Respected Elder Ming hurriedly waved his hand. His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet, and it's also a concubine selection ceremony. We naturally have to come and join in the fun. At this moment, after hearing the identity of the person who came, everyone also stood up and bowed. Greetings to 36 Respected Elder Ming. Many people were secretly shocked. This was an expert among the experts of the Yuntian Tower. Even among the dozens of respected elders, he was definitely the one with the highest strength and status. Usually, 36 respected Elder Ming was mostly invisible and never got involved in these matters. Who knew what had happened today for him to suddenly come? 36 respected Elder Ming laughed loudly. I just came out of seclusion and heard about this. Naturally, I rushed over without stopping. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Ming Yao, who was at the side. Ming Yao quivered and hurriedly bowed in greeting. Respected Elder, why did you come out of seclusion today? No one actually came to inform us in advance. Apologies for not coming out to welcome you. I hope, after I came out of seclusion, I immediately rushed over when I heard the news. Naturally, no one informed us. 36 respected Elder Ming snorted. If I came a little later, wouldn't I have missed this meticulously planned and lively banquet today? Ming Yao was drenched in cold sweat and didn't know what to say for a moment. It seemed that 36 respected Elder Ming already knew everything. He was the one who did his best to facilitate the concubine selection. Previously, 36 respected Elder Ming had repeatedly warned him not to have any ideas about this. However, he still secretly did it when 36 respected Elder Ming was in seclusion. He had originally thought that by the time this person came out of seclusion, everything would have been settled. At that time, even if 36 respected Elder Ming was dissatisfied, what was done could not be undone, and he would not be able to say much. I didn't expect him to appear so quickly. This time he was caught red-handed. Just when Ming Yao thought that 36 respected Elder Ming might criticize him severely in front of everyone, he saw that 36 respected Elder Ming did not say anything more to him. Instead, he turned around and walked to the other side. Under everyone's gaze, he walked to Lin Tianfeng's table. This was actually the first time Lin Tianfeng had seen this legendary existence. However, he was very clear that 36 revered Elder Ming had also come to find Duguyu. As expected, 36 respected Elder Ming's gaze landed on Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly, but soon relaxed as a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. Honorable Elder 36 Ming? Ming 36 was stared at by her clear, dark eyes and immediately felt guilty. He clenched his fist and coughed. Cough, lass, His Highness the Holy Sun has spoken words of gold. How can you go back on your words in front of everyone? Just treat it as if you're participating for fun. Anyway, it won't affect anything, right? Everyone was confused. Participating for fun? 36 respected Elder Ming, is it really appropriate for you to say that? So many people present have a cautious and expectant attitude towards this matter. What do you mean by letting Duguyu participate for fun? Looking at 36 respected Elder Ming's expression, Chu Luiyue suddenly had a thought. She narrowed her eyes and glanced at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table without batting an eyelid. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. All right. With 36 respected Elder Ming's interference and Chu Luiyue's help, this matter finally proceeded smoothly. The atmosphere was a little strange. Many people started whispering to each other. So 36 respected Elder Ming actually knows that Duguyu? What exactly is her background? I'm not sure. But since she came with those people from Cave Heaven Cliff's Lin family, logically speaking, she shouldn't be of noble birth, right? That's true. But His Highness the Holy Sun and 36 respected Elder Ming's attitude towards her seems to be very unusual. This girl looks ordinary. I really don't know what His Highness sees in her. So what? Today all the noble ladies of the various clans are here. How can there be a place for her to stand? But then again, why is only 36 respected Elder Ming here for such an important occasion? Where are the other respected elders? Perhaps the other respected elders have their own matters to deal with or are cultivating. Didn't you see that 36 respected Elder Ming also came out of seclusion and hurried over? Moreover, not all the respected elders of Yuntian Tower are convinced by His Highness the Holy Sun. Shoo, we can't say such things. Everyone was discussing. Jiang Jiwan slowly pinched the corner of her clothes. Jiang Hetian turned back to look at her and saw her aggrieved eyes. He sighed and comforted her. All right, Ziyuan. Daddy knows that you are aggrieved, but His Highness the Holy Sun has always been like this. No one can stop him from doing what he wants to do. Don't worry. According to Duguyu's status, even if she is chosen, she will at most have the fate of a concubine. She doesn't even have the qualifications to be a concubine, let alone a princess consort. You don't have to worry, I'm not worried about this. Jiang Ziyuan bit her lips and her voice was choked with sobs. I'm just sad. He must be interested in this girl. Otherwise he wouldn't have done this. She had known him for so long, but he had never done anything especially for her. How could she not be sad when compared to him? What made it even harder for her to accept was that Duguyu didn't seem to want to accept her kindness even though she was being so generous. Rong Xiu was the most handsome man in the world. How could her so-called fiancé compare to him? Jiang Hetian patted her hand. As long as the person sitting next to him is you, he will be yours for the rest of his life. As for the rest, why should you care? These words finally made Jiang Jiwan snap out of her daze. She held back the tears in her eyes, nodded her head forcefully and said stubbornly, "Of course I won't let others take away everything that belongs to me." Jiang Hetian heaved a sigh of relief and slowly smiled. "This is the young mistress of the Jiang clan in the immortal water tomb. You are my precious daughter." Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips and looked up slightly at Chu Luiyue. Thinking about everything that had happened just now, she felt even more uncomfortable. How could such a girl stay by his side? It would be best to find a way to chase her out from the beginning. Umo quickly brought a chair over and invited 36 respected elder Ming to sit to the left of Rong Xiu. As Chu Luiyue listened to the crowd's discussion, she glanced over. Rong Xiu seemed to have specially prepared seats for the respected elders. Chapter 1069. Miss Dugu, it turns out that you even know 36 respected elder Ming? Lin Tianfeng's current feelings could no longer be described as shock. First it was Lord Yanqing, then His Highness the Holy Sun, and now even the reclusive 36 respected elder Ming was familiar with her. Was she really just an ordinary outsider? He wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Chu Luiyue regained her senses and nodded nonchalantly. We're not very familiar with each other, we've met a few times. Lin Tianfeng's eyes were filled with resentment. How could she have such an attitude after meeting him a few times? It was rumored that 36 respected elder Ming didn't even care about the Ming clan's matters. If it was really nothing, why would he say such things to her? Lin Tianfeng felt that he couldn't understand the woman in front of him anymore. She looked ordinary, but she was able to cure Ji Fei's illness as an 8th-grade celestial physician. She seemed to have no background, but she had dealings with the most honorable person in Yuntian Tower. She seemed to be hiding many secrets that couldn't be seen through. Lin Qifei looked at her meaningfully, then his gaze swept past Dugu Mabao. Perhaps his guess was true? Then Yanqing was finally able to continue reading from the booklet. Fortunately, there were no more accidents after that. When he finished reading, he closed the booklet and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Rong Xiu leaned against the chair, languid and calm, with a noble aura that came from his bones. I like to play chess and I also like women who play chess well. So the first round is chess. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and countless silver lights flew out. The bright lights intertwined in mid-air, and quickly formed a huge chessboard in the center of the hall. Whoever can play with eye to the end will be the winner of this round. The hall was silent for a moment and then there were whispers. Who would have thought that His Highness the Holy Sun's first round of choosing a consort would be a game of chess? However, many people knew that His Highness the Holy Sun liked to play chess. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with doing this. Jiang Hetian glanced at Jiang Jiwan with a smile. Don't you usually like and are good at this? From this, it can be seen that His Highness still cares about you. Jiang Jiwan's cheeks were dyed with a touch of crimson, and she was a little shy. Father, don't tease me. Did Father say something wrong? You've been learning chess from the patriarch since you were 3 years old, and your skills are exquisite. There are very few people in the world who can defeat you. Who else but you can claim first place? Jiang Jiwan's face turned even redder. Looking at the shining chessboard, her eyes were filled with excitement and joy. It seemed that he did remember. Yanqing asked. Who wants to be the first to come up and give it a try? Everyone immediately quieted down. Soon a voice came from the crowd. Yunwu Mountain's Pei Pei is willing to give it a try. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a woman in a crimson outfit. She was tall and slender. She had a fair oval face and delicate facial features. Among the many women who dressed up meticulously, she wasn't the top beauty. However, the valiant and heroic spirit between her eyebrows added a different kind of elegance to her. She had a wide saber at her waist as if she was ready to draw it and fight at any time. After saying that, she walked straight to the center of the hall and stood on the huge chessboard. The eldest miss of Yunwu Mountain. I heard that she has a fierce personality and does things in a hurry. Seeing her today, it's true. She dares to be the first to go up. She's really brave. I wonder how many steps she can take. I heard that His Highness the Holy Sun's chess skills are very good. No matter how many steps she can take, she can still show her face in front of His Highness. At least it's better than being unknown, right? No matter how the people around her discussed, Pei Pei acted as if she didn't hear them. She raised her chin and looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu said, "Miss Pei, please go first." "Thank you, Your Highness." Pei Pei responded with a grunt, and then started very nimbly. Dark red force gathered in her palm. Then with a flick of her wrist she hit the chessboard with the force. Buzz. A slight fluctuation was felt. A dark red round chess piece instantly appeared on the chessboard. "Your Highness, please." However, just as Pei Pei finished speaking, a golden chess piece quickly appeared on the chessboard. Rongxiu said indifferently, "This chessboard contains all the chess games that I have seen and played. Therefore, it can automatically place a piece." Pei Pei was stunned. "In other words, if I can't play a new game, Your Highness won't make a move personally?" Rongxiu nodded. Regretful sighs could be heard in the hall. Some of the women who were ready to make a move immediately withered. Didn't this mean that if they couldn't play to the same level as His Highness, they wouldn't even have a chance to fight him? If they weren't strong enough, there was no point in going up. It would be very embarrassing. A hint of astonishment flashed across Pei Pei's face, but she quickly recovered. She didn't say anything and continued. However, every time she placed a piece, the chessboard would quickly react and give her a counter move. More importantly, with every move, the pressure on the chessboard would become heavier. Pei Pei gradually felt the pressure, and the speed at which she played slowed down. Finally, after about half an hour, Pei Pei was no longer able to withstand the terrifying pressure. No matter how she tried, the origin power she unleashed would dissipate an inch or so away from the chessboard. She couldn't place a piece at all. At this moment, everyone could see that this chessboard was much stronger and more complicated than they had expected. After another failed attempt, Pei Pei simply chose to give up. "I admit defeat." Yuemo was in charge of recording. Yumu Mountain's Pei Pei 11 moves. Everyone had different expressions. In fact, Pei Pei could already be considered as one of the most outstanding women among the many women. Although Yunwu Mountain couldn't be compared to the Immortal Water Mausoleum, it was still one of the top clans in terms of strength and resources. As for Pei Pei, she was a genius carefully nurtured by Yunwu Mountain. At the age of 21, she had already broken through to the peak of the 9th level. Even she could only play 11 moves on the chessboard, let alone others. Pei Pei didn't seem to care. After bowing to Rongxiu, she simply went down. "Next." Yan Qing shouted in a deep voice. Everyone looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. However, the position of consort was too tempting. After some hesitation, many women still chose to give it a try. However, most of them couldn't even compare to Pei Pei. Some couldn't even place a piece on the chessboard. Thus, although many people tried, it didn't take long. Soon everyone gradually calmed down. At this time, those who dared to go up had all done so. Only 2 women were more outstanding than Pei Pei, but they couldn't even make 20 moves. In the silence, many people looked at Jianghu. Chapter 1070. Jianghu of the Tomb of Immortal Water was a famous genius in the Divine Ruins world. Jianghu stood up, walked toward the huge chessboard and stood still. She was beautiful to begin with, and today she had dressed up meticulously. Naturally, she looked even more alluring. Moreover, she had only put on light makeup, and her outfit was simple and elegant. Compared to the other women who had put on makeup, she looked even more elegant and refined. Under the faint glow of the chessboard, she stood tall, graceful, and gentle. She had already surpassed the other women before her. She glanced at the chessboard, raised her hand and placed a blue chess piece. Like before, the chessboard reacted quickly, and a golden chess piece appeared in another position. Jianghu didn't hesitate at all, and continued to place her chess piece. Time passed slowly. Jianghu had already made 20 moves, becoming the person who had made the most moves so far, but she still didn't stop. In fact, she didn't even slow down the speed of her chess game. Compared to the others before her, she was clearly much more relaxed. The hall gradually quieted down and everyone had different expressions. Only a few people were discussing and exclaiming in low voices. As expected of the young miss of the Tomb of Immortal Water. Her strength is indeed not something that we can compare to. It's been rumored that she's going to be the princess consort. Now who else could it be? She's only 22 this year, right? I heard that she's already become a demigod. Hiss. No wonder she's so powerful. This kind of appearance, this kind of background really can't be compared. I heard that when she was young she spent most of her time in the Yuntian Tower, and the Yuntian Tower's patriarch has always doted on her. Her chess skills were also learned from him. Does this mean that His Highness the Holy Sun set up this test for her? Jianghu was focused on her chess game, but she wasn't weak, and her 5 senses were sharp, so she could hear most of what was being said. A sweet feeling welled up in her heart. She placed another chess piece and at the same time looked at Rongxiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and smiled. Your Highness, please take this. With this move, it was time for him to make a move. However, when she placed her chess piece, another golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Jiang Jiwan's smile froze on her face. Chu Luiyue poured a glass of wine out of boredom. I thought that this eldest Miss Jiang was really powerful, but I didn't expect. Did she overestimate herself, or did God underestimate Rongxiu? Did he really think that he could force Rongxiu to act personally? Looking at the huge chessboard again, she suddenly narrowed her eyes and leaned closer to Dugu Debeo, who was sitting at the side, and lowered her voice. Debeo, why do I feel that this chessboard is somewhat familiar? Dugu Mabao's expression did not change. All chessboards in the world look the same. What's there to be familiar about? Something's not right. Chu Liwei shook his head and said firmly. I must have seen it before. This aura? Suddenly her pupils shrank and she looked at Dugu Mabao in disbelief. You pulled me down before, bang? There was a sudden explosion on the chessboard. A terrifying impact spread out in all directions. Jiang Jiwan was caught off guard, and she was the first to bear the brunt of it and instantly flew out. Xuan. Jiang Hetian was shocked and he immediately got up and threw out a force. Jiang Jiwan's body was instantly enveloped by a translucent barrier. With the help of this barrier, Jiang Jiwan finally landed safely. She looked at the chessboard in shock. The blue chess piece on it was already in a dead end. Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1071. Jiang Jiwan, lost. Uemo raised his hand and wrote. Jiang Jiwan of the Tomb of Immortal Water, 43 moves. This number was already the best compared to the previous girls, but she still couldn't reach the end and ask Rongxiu to make a move. Crash. The chess pieces on the chessboard instantly disappeared and returned to their original state. The hall was silent. Everyone's eyes moved back and forth between the chessboard and Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Ziyuan felt as if there was a dagger on her back. She felt a burning pain on her face. She looked at the chessboard in front of her in disbelief. How could this be? This game was so difficult. If it were someone else, they probably wouldn't be able to reach this point. That was why she was sure that this game had reached the point where Rongxiu needed to make a move. But, no. This also meant that someone had once taken more steps than her on this chessboard. But who could that person be? Could it be the clan leader or 36 respected Elder Ming? Jiang Jiwan couldn't guess. Alright Ziyuan, you're already first. Don't think too much about the rest. Jiang Hetian comforted her. No one knew a daughter better than a father. Of course he knew that Jiang Jiwan was very unhappy and aggrieved. She probably wanted to wait for Rongxiu to make a move so that the two of them could play together. Jiang Jiwan took a deep breath and forced a smile. Thank you, father. I understand. She just felt a little regretful. Rongxiu's chess skills were superb. She had known for a long time. It was a pity that she had never played a proper game of chess with him. Most of the time, it was the clan leader who played with him while she watched from the side. Every time she was eager to play, she wanted to set up the chessboard and play with him to her heart's content. However, he always rejected her with one reason or another. She thought that with today's opportunity she could. Jiang Hetian comforted her in a low voice. His Highness is very good at this game. You still have some gaps. When you come to the Yuntian Tower in the future, you can learn more from His Highness. Jiang Jiwan's originally aggrieved and unwilling expression suddenly turned into a trace of shyness. Then she nodded seriously. Yes, I know. Chu Liwei, who was originally resting his chin on one hand and watching all of this with a lazy expression, raised his eyebrows. In the future? Come to the Yuntian Tower? Learn more from His Highness? A smile appeared on Chu Liue's lips. So they had already made their plans for the future? Yan Qing looked at the crowd. Is there anything else you want to continue? There was complete silence. Haha, Madam Yan Qing, basically everyone who wants to try has already come up. Moreover, the best results have already come out. I think this round should be over, right? Jiang Hetian laughed. Although he looked amiable, his tone was incomparably firm and did not leave any room for refutation. Wait a minute. A clear and calm female voice sounded, breaking the silence. Chu Liyue's lips curved slightly, containing a hint of a smile. I want to give it a try too. You? Jiang Hetian asked instinctively, looking at her with a somewhat suspicious gaze. Just now, everyone had more or less seen how difficult this chess game was. If she still wanted to come up at this time, wouldn't she be asking for trouble? Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows. Why can't I? Yes. Of course you can. Before Jiang Hetian could say anything, 36 respected Elder Ming, who was sitting above, hurriedly urged her. Little girl, go quickly. Everyone, Chu Liyue, 36 respected Elder Ming seemed to have just realized that this was a little inappropriate. He quickly coughed, then quickly shot Rongxiu a look. How is it? I've done a good job, haven't I? Rongxiu's thin lips curved slightly, and there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Praise the respected elders. Chu Liyue turned to look at Dugu Mabao beside her, pinched his chubby little face and snorted softly. I'll settle your score with you when I get back. Dugu Mabao's eyelids twitched. It was rare that he did not get angry because his precious face was being pinched. Seeing his reaction, Chu Liyue was even more certain of her guess. She collected her thoughts, dusted her clothes and walked toward the chessboard. Please make way. Chu Liyue's smile was very polite when she came up to her. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, feeling more and more uncomfortable. However, she forced herself to hold it in and did not flare up. She walked back with Jiang Hetian. However, her eyes did not move away from Chu Liyue. She wanted to see how capable this woman was. Light flashed on the huge chessboard. Chu Liyue stood with her hands behind her back straight. Her long black hair fell like clouds and she was dressed in a neat red dress. She seemed to be able to attract everyone's attention just by standing there. She stared at the chessboard for a moment, then raised her hand and placed a chess piece. A red force flew out and hit the chessboard instantly. Buzz. The chessboard vibrated. A golden go piece appeared right after. That familiar feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Chu Liyue did not hesitate at all and placed her chess pieces continuously. Soon, the crowd was shocked to find that she did not need to think at all when she was playing chess. Her movements were so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Sometimes, before the golden chess piece could fully form on the chessboard, Chu Liyue would have already made her move. How is she so fast? It couldn't have been done randomly, right? Many people in the crowd began to question her. It can't be. Look at the chessboard, isn't she moving all the time? She's not playing randomly. She is really good at this. Her thoughts are quick and flexible. This ability is probably even better than Lady Jiang's. At this moment, Jiang Jiwan's expression had changed from indifference to shock. Of course, she could tell that Dugu Yu's skill level was higher than hers. And not just by a little. Her gaze was fixed on the chessboard. At the beginning she could still keep up, but gradually the game became more complicated, and she had to think for a while before making each move. However, Dugu Yu did not stop at all. Soon Jiang Jiwan's mind was in a mess. She's about to make the 43rd move. Suddenly someone shouted. If she makes one more move, she'll beat Lady Jiang. Before the voice could finish, Chu Liyue waved her hand and placed another chess piece without hesitation. Many people sucked in a cold breath. Dugu Yu's performance had already surpassed Jiang Jiwan's. Oh my god, I didn't expect Dugu Yu to be so good. How far do you think she'll go? I really can't tell, but, looking at how relaxed she is now, it shouldn't be a problem for her to ask His Highness for help, right? Even Lady Jiang couldn't do it. If Dugu Yu really succeeds, then, Jiang Jiwan bit her lip. Chu Liyue did not care about her surroundings. Now, there was only the gigantic chessboard and Rongxiu in front of her. Buzz. She placed a chess piece. This time, no golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Chu Liyue raised her head slightly and looked at the man sitting on the seat of honor opposite her. She raised her eyebrows and smiled brightly. Your Highness, please? Chapter 1072. Her smile was bright and resplendent, and her eyes were like stars. Her facial features were clearly ordinary, but because of this smile, they instantly became lively. Many people were slightly stunned. This woman looked ordinary at first glance, but upon closer inspection, she seemed to be extremely beautiful. Just the slight ripple of light in her jade-like eyes was enough to move people's hearts. Rongxiu didn't look surprised at all. Instead, he smiled slightly. His originally cold and noble eyes instantly melted like the ice in early spring. There seemed to be a vortex in his deep eyes that could easily swallow people and make them sink. He raised his hand and a golden stream of light flew out. Bus. A golden chess piece fell, blocking the path of Chu Liyue's chess piece. His Highness really made a move. She shouldn't be able to hold on much longer, right? It's rumored that His Highness's chess skills are superb. So what? Even if she loses now, she's still number one. What's more, she's the only one who can ask His Highness to make a move. Countless eyes were focused on the two people facing each other in the main hall. They were all focused, afraid that they would miss a single thing. However, not everyone was like this. At the very least, Xuanhuan wasn't in the mood to patiently watch at this time. Her heart seemed to be clenched by something, and her chest felt suffocated. The trace of discomfort caused by Duguyu at the beginning quickly spread to her whole body at this time. Xuan, how are you? Jiang Hetian frowned, his eyes full of worry. Jiang Jiwan forced a smile. Dad, don't worry. I'm fine. How could she be fine? She had always been outstanding since she was a child. Whether it was family background, appearance, or talent, she almost easily crushed others. She had always been the most eye-catching existence in the crowd. But now, all the glory had been taken away by the woman named Duguyu. She was obviously so ordinary and there wasn't a single highlight on her, but she seemed to have some kind of magic that could easily attract everyone's attention. Needless to say, the level she was showing at this time was extraordinary. Jiang Hetian glanced at the chessboard. Xuan, she should be about to lose now, right? He didn't really understand what was going on, but based on his past experience, Duguyu shouldn't be able to hold on for long. If she lost faster, Xuan's mood might be slightly better. However, Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something and she couldn't say a word. It wasn't that she couldn't understand the intense battle on the chessboard, but it was precisely because she could understand that she felt even worse. Because compared to Rongxiu, Duguyu was actually not too inferior. The two of them were clearly evenly matched. Jiang Jiwan knew that she was definitely a genius in this aspect. She could easily crush 99% of the people here. Those scenes became clear. Digression, nothing today. Chapter 1073. Rongxiu, you're going easy on me again. She heard her own annoyed voice in her head. One day, I'll beat you even if you don't go easy on me. The young man in front of her leaned back in his chair and picked up the ginger tea beside him. He squinted his deep phoenix eyes lazily and said slowly, "Sure." His voice was deep and pleasant, like the wind blowing across the strings of a zither. As he spoke, the cup of tea was brought to his lips. His thin scarlet lips covered the mouth of the white jade porcelain cup gently. "Hey Rongxiu, that's my tea." She glanced at him from the corner of her eye and saw that he had taken the wrong cup. Rongxiu paused and looked up. Her originally cold eyes seemed to be dyed with some warmth in an instant. It was like the setting sun by the river in the evening. The brilliant afterglow was reflected in the water, making it the color of the sky and the water. "Is that so?" A few vague syllables came from between his lips and teeth, with a hint of a smile. Just when she thought that he was going to put down the teacup, she suddenly saw the man in front of her move the teacup forward again. His lips moved slightly, and he gently folded the remaining trace of rouge over it. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat and she was stunned on the spot. Even though she was usually very cunning, she did not expect him to do this. He took a sip of tea and then put the teacup down slowly. Her lips were especially moist because they were stained with tea. Chu Liyue's face suddenly turned red. It was as if a flame was burning. The scorching heat swept over and almost engulfed her in an instant. He seemed to be unaware of it and raised his eyebrows slightly. "So you drink ginger tea every day?" Chu Liyue seemed to have finally found her voice and snorted softly. "Ginger tea is bitter. Who told you to drink other people's tea? Now you're suffering, aren't you?" "Oh." Rongxiu supported himself with one hand and looked at her with a faint smile. "I feel that this tea is sweet and delicious. The others can't even compare to a tenth of it." Chu Liyue finally couldn't sit still any longer and stood up abruptly. "I suddenly remembered that I haven't practiced the chi sword art yet, so I'll go back first." With that, he left in a hurry. Rongxiu looked over. She was walking down the small path on the cliff. Her footsteps were light, and her light-colored dress fluttered like a butterfly. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind, lively and lively. After walking for some distance, she suddenly stopped and turned back to look at the cliff. Rongxiu seemed to have expected this. He raised his teacup and saluted her from afar. "If you want to teach me a thing or two, Rongxiu is always waiting." The woman immediately disappeared at an even faster speed. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a deep smile. That day the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. A man dressed in white was sitting in a pavilion on the cliff. He leaned against the cliff, and the mountain breeze blew up the corners of his clothes, making him look like an immortal. And beside his hand was a cup of tea. Bitter and sweet at the same time. Those scenes gradually disappeared. Chu Liyue's eyes gradually focused. Everything in front of her was reflected in her eyes again. She opened her mouth. Rong Xiu's eyebrows moved slightly, and there seemed to be waves in his eyes. Miss Dugu, what's wrong? He lowered his voice, but there was a subtle calming power in it. Chu Liyue finally woke up completely. She closed her eyes and looked at Rong Xiu not far away. At that time, whether it was Rong Xiu or her, they didn't seem to be very old. Between their eyebrows, there was still the youthfulness and vitality unique to teenagers. At that time they should have known each other for a while. Although she couldn't remember exactly how long. But she clearly remembered that her heart was beating violently at that time. That was the first time her heart was beating like a drum, her face was hot and she didn't know what to do. But there was also an indescribable subtle joy. It was around then or even earlier. She had already fallen in love with that person. From that time until now she didn't know how many days had passed. But they were still together in the end. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed and she shook her head. It's nothing, I just remembered some things. She raised her chin slightly, raised her eyebrows and smiled. For this round I should be number one, right? There was silence. Everyone looked at the woman standing in the middle of the hall, and for a moment they were still in a daze. She was number one just like that? Previously so many people wanted to ask His Highness to help, but they couldn't. But not only did she do it, she even won against His Highness. Rong Xiu's lips curled slightly, and there was a hint of a smile on his face. You're number one, you deserve it. Jianghu broke her delicately manicured nails. An intense pain came from her fingertips, and her face turned even paler. But these feelings, compared to the frustration and unwillingness in her heart, were not worth mentioning. How could this be? She was supposed to be number one. From the beginning until now, she had never doubted that she was the most outstanding one here, and also the most suitable and qualified person to be the princess consort. She had taken it for granted, so she didn't feel any pressure. Until now, when Dugu snatched the first place, she finally realized that there was always someone better. The position that she thought was at her fingertips was actually not that secure for her to sit on. In fact, if the women from other tribes had won, she wouldn't feel so bad. She would rather let Pei Pei and the others win than see Dugu standing in the middle and being the focus of everyone. This was because Rong Xiu clearly treated her differently. Chapter 1074. The second stage is also very simple. The Rong Xiu raised his hand. A crack suddenly appeared in the void. Then a huge snow-white figure slowly walked out of it. It was a white lion with a muscular body. Its fur was snow-white, and only its eyes were icy blue, emitting a cold light. Its aura was shocking. It walked toward the Rong Xiu, its paws landing on the ground as it walked silently. But those sharp claws were vaguely visible. It walked to the Rong Xiu's side and lay down obediently, looking down with a pair of majestic and murderous eyes. As if looking at ants. Wherever it passed, the cold air was oppressive. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. This was a divine beast. And its level was extremely high. Xue's eyes contracted. Divine beast. The Rong Xiu stroked Xue's head and said casually, whoever can subdue it will be considered qualified. In the main hall there was a series of gasps. The divine beast contracted by His Highness the Saint. It was rumored to be ferocious and extremely powerful. It was obvious how difficult it was to subdue it. Those who were slightly weaker would be courting death if they went up. Some of the women's faces had already turned pale, and they were trembling. They thought that participating in the consort selection was just a competition of family background, talent, and beauty. But they didn't expect that His Highness the Saint would take them by surprise. To compete in this? Gosh, that's a divine beast. According to rumors, its strength is comparable to a god-level master. I'm only at the peak of level 8, how can I be its opponent? I don't dare to even level 9. I really don't know what His Highness the Saint is thinking. If I also have a contracted divine beast, it'll be much easier, right? It's easy to say, but how can a divine beast be so easy to obtain? Ordinary people like us don't have to think about the position of consort. Only the most powerful clans had such resources. For example, Miss Jiang. It was said that when she was 10 years old, Yun Tiang's clan leader had personally caught a divine beast cub and mated her contracted magical beast. There's no way we can catch up to this kind of luck. Many people started whispering to each other. Jiang Jiwan heaved a sigh of relief. Shue? That's good. On the one hand, she had contracted a divine beast and was not weaker than Shue. On the other hand, she and Shue could be considered old acquaintances, so it was naturally much easier for her to deal with Shue. Thinking of this, Jiang Jiwan took a step forward. Your Highness, I'm willing to be the first. Chu Liyue's mouth twitched when he saw Shue lying beside Rong Xiu's feet. So the reason it left earlier was to make an appearance now? She really didn't know what would happen if these people knew that this majestic white lion had asked for a hug from her the night before. What would happen? Seeing that Jiang Jiwan was going to be the first one, Chu Liyue simply stepped aside. Shue immediately looked at her with resentment. I thought she was going to be the first one. If she made a move directly, wouldn't the second round be over? Now, he had to drag this out even more and go through a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue pretended not to see it and smiled politely at Jiang Jiwan. Miss Jiang, please. After he finished speaking, he returned to his seat with a carefree look on his face. Shue looked up at her mistress again. If it weren't for you, would I be implicated? Rong Xiu also glanced at it indifferently. It only came back after shouting 3 times. I wonder whose demonic beast this is? Shue sighed in its heart. If it wasn't for its bad eyesight back then, how could it be so miserable now? Rong Xiu raised his chin. Shue then stood up. Let's solve these problems first. Swoosh. Shue leaped from the seat of honor to the middle of the hall, only 10 steps away from Jiang Jiwan. Its coquettish and shameless expression had long since disappeared and was replaced by a cold and dignified expression. Chu Liyue watched from the side and rested her chin on one hand. She found it very interesting. It was only at this moment that she belatedly remembered that such a huge beast was actually a divine beast. Speaking of which, she actually hadn't seen Shue fight seriously. Who asked it to always hide its true strength like its master in the past? Thinking of this, Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows and looked like she was ready to watch a show. Shue, long time no see. A smile appeared on Jiang Jiwan's face. She knew very well how much Rong Xiu valued this divine beast. It was important to have a good relationship with it. But in the face of Jiang Jiwan's flattery, Shue seemed unmoved. It tilted its head and a trace of impatience appeared in its eyes. It didn't seem to care about the identity of the person in front of it. Instead, it was only blaming her for not starting. Its sharp claws scratched the ground. A thin layer of frost quickly condensed. It was already prepared for battle. Jiang Jiwan instantly felt very awkward. She took a deep breath and comforted herself. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for many years that it was treating her like this. However, she was still confident that she could subdue it. So, she put away these thoughts and held her breath. The next moment, a blue force gathered in her palm. 6-pole lock. The blue force instantly transformed into 6 ropes and flew toward Shue, enveloping it. In the blink of an eye, the 6 ropes had already formed a huge hexagon in the air above Shue. And inside, light flickered and quickly formed a strange pattern. Immortal Water Tomb's Jiang family's totem. A cry of surprise came from the crowd. Looks like she's determined to win this round. She's even summoned her totem. This 6-pole lock is one of the ultimate moves of the Immortal Water Tomb. It looks simple, but in reality, its sealing power is extremely strong. Rumor has it that even if one's strength is 1 level lower than the opponent, the cultivator can still use this move to seal the opponent in battle. And then counterattack. Using this move to deal with this round is just right. If Jiang Jiwan directly wins, then the rest of the people don't need to go up. Jiang Jiwan looked at Shue. Shue, if you admit defeat now, I can stop. This is good for both of them. Shue looked up and a trace of disdain flashed across its eyes. Admit defeat? Wasn't she overestimating herself? 6-pole lock? What the hell? Shue raised its paw and waved it fiercely. Several streaks of light flew past. Chi. Instantly, the crowd heard the sound of something being cut apart. Then they saw that the 6-pole lock that was hovering above Shue's head had been cut open from the middle. The light on it quickly dimmed. The blood in Jiang Jiwan's chest and abdomen surged. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. She looked at Shue in shock. How did its strength suddenly improve so much? Shue bared its teeth and swiped its paw at her. Did you really think that I ate so much yellow sand for nothing? Digression, Kavinka felt terrible. Update at 6 p.m. Chapter 1075. A vigorous figure suddenly appeared in front of Jianghu. It jumped with all its might and blocked Xue's claw. Rip! The sound of sharp claws tearing through flesh was jarring. Jianghu hurriedly retreated, her face pale. In that instant she really thought she was going to die under Xue's claws. Everyone looked over and saw that the one blocking Jianghu was also a fiend. It was a muscular leopard. Its entire body was brown with black spots, and it had a pair of wings on its back. A pair of jade-green eyes, deep and terrifying. This was Jianghu's contracted divine beast, the double-winged black star leopard. At this moment Xue had viciously torn off a piece of flesh on its back. Fresh blood was dripping from the wound. On the other hand, Xue's claws were stained with some blood. It was completely unaffected. Everyone could see that although this double-winged black star leopard was also a divine beast, its level and ability were obviously lower than Xue's. In such a situation, it would not be easy for Jianghu to win. Jianghu was still in shock. If the double-winged black star leopard had not appeared in time, she would have. The more panicked she was, the deeper the hatred in her heart. She gritted her teeth. Leopard, go. However, the double-winged black star leopard did not immediately move. It seemed to hesitate. It lowered its body warily, but its gaze toward Xue was filled with respect that could not be ignored. The hierarchy of fiends was strict. High-level fiends usually had strong control and deterrence over low-level fiends. This was an inheritance that came from the bloodline. All fiends had to obey it. Hence, although the double-winged black star leopard had heard Jianghu's command, its respect for higher-level fiends could not be erased. It had only jumped out in a moment of desperation earlier because it was forced by the power of the master-servant contract between Jianghu and it. However, it was really difficult for it to fight Xue head-on now. Jianghu was furious. Leopard. The winged black star leopard scratched the ground twice with its claws. Xue glared fiercely at the man and beast opposite her. A cold light flashed across her eyes. In the next moment it quickly scuttled out. Take the initiative to attack. Their target was the winged black star panther. But the double-winged black star leopard spread its wings and was about to fly into the air to fight. However, before it could do anything, there was a flash of light and Xue was already right in front of it. The winged black star leopard was shocked. He immediately ran in another direction. It was fast. However, Xue was even faster. With a light tap of its toes, it instantly left several afterimages in the air. Several exclamations came from the crowd. Although the double-winged black star leopard's level is lower than the white lion's, its speed is top-notch. Logically speaking, it should have the upper hand in this aspect. How did this happen? In the blink of an eye, Xue was already in front of the winged black star leopard. It raised its claws and slapped down. The winged black comet panther was unable to react in time, and its head was directly hit. Its vision turned black, and its body fell heavily to the ground uncontrollably. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Leopard. Jianghu was shocked and immediately wanted to charge over. However, Xue did not give her the chance. It quickly landed and opened its mouth to bite without hesitation. No! Jianghu's voice became shrill. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was exceptionally crisp. One of the winged black star leopard's wings had been bitten off from the middle by Xue. Blood splattered everywhere. The black bones were exposed and one could even see the broken stubble. It was an eerie sight. Jianghu gasped. She was so agitated by the scene before her that she almost fainted. Her father had personally found this winged black star leopard for her on her 10th birthday. After so many years, she had taken good care of it and was very attached to it. Now that one of its wings had been bitten off, how could she bear it? Xue raised its head. Its icy blue eyes were cold and had a hint of provocation. Its meaning was clear. Do you want to continue? The winged black star leopard struggled to get up. Unfortunately, Xue was suppressing it and it could not move. Jianghu was shocked and furious. However, she knew that if this continued, it would not end well. She was unwilling to accept this. She clenched her fists and her nails pierced her palms. Everything that had happened earlier kept replaying in her mind. The six-pole lock was easily torn apart, and the winged black star leopard could not retaliate. I admit defeat. Jianghu gritted her teeth and spat out these words. The first challenge of the second stage ended just like that. It started naturally but ended unexpectedly. Before this, everyone thought highly of Jianghu. However, who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Xue's attacks were clean and direct. It was a one-sided suppression. Even someone as strong as Jianghu was defeated. After a rough calculation, he realized that he hadn't even been able to hold on for 15 minutes. Hearing her admit defeat, Xue jumped down from the winged black star leopard. It looked down and rubbed its claws against the ground in disdain. The winged black star leopard was such a lowly creature. Its blood would only stain its noble claws. If not for the fact that it wanted to end the battle quickly, it would not have bothered to do this. Jianghu retreated with the winged black star leopard. Rongxiu leaned against the throne. His expression was still languid. Next. His voice was low and pleasant. It was light and gentle. However, the expressions of many women changed. Next. Even Jianghu was in such a state. Wouldn't the others be worse off? They yearned for the position of princess consort, but they had to be alive first. They did not want to lose their lives for nothing. Wouldn't that be too much of a loss? Rongxiu raised his brows and looked around. Many people lowered their heads. They were obviously unwilling to accept the challenge. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at Chu Luiyue a few times. He could not help but urge her. Didn't you form a contract with a divine beast too? He looked like he was about to pull Chu Luiyue up. Upon hearing this, many people in the palace looked at Chu Luiyue, including Jianghu. She was treating the winged black star leopard's wounds. When she heard that, she immediately looked up. Divine beast? That Dugiyu has one too? She pursed her lips. So what if she has a divine beast? If she goes up, she'll end up like me. Chu Luiyue stood up and walked toward Xue. Finally, she stopped about 10 steps away. She has a divine beast too? I wonder what level it is. She doesn't seem to have any background. Her divine beast's level shouldn't be too high, right? But she knows His Highness the Saint and 36 respected Elder Ming. Maybe, amidst the crowd's discussions, a small red figure appeared on Chu Luiyue's shoulder. It was Dumpling. Then, with a whoosh, Dumpling suddenly spread her wings. See how I'll deal with you today. Xue also seemed to be energized. Roar. The hatred of stealing my master is irreconcilable. Whoever wins will be her fiend. Chu Luiyue. Chapter 1076. She raised her hand. Hey that, whoosh. Before she could finish her sentence, Dumpling had already flown out. Xue leaped. The two weapons clashed and instantly became entangled in a fight. You want to steal my master? Dream on. You've already gotten such a good thing, and you're not letting other beasts dream on? I want it. Bah. You shameless thing. Your real master is still sitting up there. Talk after you win. One snow white and one crimson red, the two figures entangled with each other, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Chu Luiyue curled her fingers and retracted her hand awkwardly. It seemed like she didn't need to do anything. She raised her eyes to take a look. A certain someone who was blatantly despised had a calm expression, and there was even a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. However, when she occasionally looked at Xue, there was a hint of coldness. Chu Luiyue mourned for Xue in her heart for a moment, and then chose to watch the show. Anyway, this wasn't their first time fighting, and it would naturally be fine after the fight. Compared to Chu Luiyue's relaxed and calm expression, the others who were watching were dumbfounded. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Dugiyu's divine beast was actually on par with His Highness the Holy Sun's divine beast? That's a red-tailed phoenix. Rumor has it that its bloodline is closest to the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Someone suddenly shouted in shock. According to this level and strength, it was normal for it to have such combat strength. However, not only did this explanation not clear up the doubts of the crowd, but it also made them even more shocked. Red-tailed phoenix? Such a divine beast is extremely precious, and even the various tribes might not have it. This Dugiyu? Isn't her luck too good? It's not just luck. The red-tailed phoenix has a noble status and is extremely difficult to tame. If one doesn't have a certain level of strength, it's definitely impossible to make it willingly form a contract. The way I see it, this Dugiyu does have some skills. There's always someone better than you. Although she looks ordinary, there's really nothing to say about her ability. Jianghu could hear all kinds of discussions. She gritted her teeth and the veins on the back of her hand popped out. Red-tailed red phoenix, red-tailed phoenix. That was indeed an existence of a higher level than her contracted magical beast. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she definitely wouldn't have believed that such an ordinary girl of unknown origin could actually form a contract with such a divine beast. She had always thought that the winged black star leopard she had contracted was already very good. After all, talented people like Rongxiu were extremely rare, and divine beasts like Xuexue were also extremely hard to find. But this Duguyu, the most infuriating thing was that while the two spiritual beasts were exchanging blows, she was standing by the side with a lazy expression, as if she didn't care about this matter at all. Suddenly Jianghu was startled, and a guess appeared in her mind. That Duguyu looked so confident, could it be that she was already certain that he would win? She knew Rongxiu and 36 respected Elder Ming. Moreover, the attitude of those two towards her was indeed different from that of ordinary people. In the end, Xuexue was also Rongxiu's contracted divine beast. If he wanted to, Xuexue's victory or defeat was still in his hands? Screech. Following Dumpling's clear cry, the two entangled beasts finally separated. Xuexue's fur was messy, and there were a few bloodstains on its body. Especially its nose, which was directly pecked by Dumpling's sharp beak and was bleeding. It was a miserable sight. Dumpling wasn't any better. Many of its feathers had been plucked off, and there was even a bald patch on its tail. The two stared at each other, panting heavily. It was obvious that they were still not convinced of each other's victory. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this battle was almost a draw, with both sides winning and losing. But this result was already very shocking. There was almost no one else in the entire Yuntian Tower who could fight to a draw with His Highness the Saint's contracted divine beast. Seeing that the two were about to continue fighting, Chu Liyue finally spoke. Dumpling, come back. Only then did Dumpling retract its wings and return to its original small form, landing on Chu Liyue's shoulder. Then it raised its head and glanced at Dumpling very coldly. What's there to be so arrogant about? This master belongs to whoever it belongs to. Xuexue roared indignantly. Dumpling sneered, then nestled in Chu Liyue's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face, and threw a disdainful look at Xuexue. I'm going to piss you off. Xuexue was angry and couldn't help but look at Chu Liyue pitifully. Ahem. Chu Liyue coughed. You guys still want to fight? Xuexue turned around resentfully. Was sad. It listlessly returned to Rongxiu's side and lay down weakly. Everyone was speechless. This was, it admitted defeat. Rongxiu glanced at it. It didn't seem to have deliberately gone easy on it just now. In that case, Dumpling's strength had increased rapidly, and it had indeed reached the point where it could fight with Xuexue. As if it had been seen through, Xuexue simply buried its head. I'm not listening. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly and looked away. It seems that Miss Dugu still wins this round. Wait. Before Rongxiu could finish speaking, he was suddenly interrupted. The person who spoke was Jianghu, who had left the arena in a sorry state just now. She stood up. Your Highness, there's something I don't understand. Rongxiu's expression was indifferent. Miss Jiang, please speak. Jiang Jiwan was silent for a moment, then raised her hand and pointed directly at Chu Liyue. I want to know, did Xuexue deliberately let her win that round just now? The crowd was in an uproar. Jiang Jiwan was too bold to directly ask such a question? Rongxiu seemed to smile. Miss Jiang, are you suspecting that I'm unfair? Xuexue was his contracted divine beast. Suspecting Xuexue was naturally suspecting him. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips. Ziyuan doesn't dare. Ziyuan only asks that your Highness give me a chance. If Miss Dugu can defeat me, I will naturally be convinced. As she spoke, she looked at Chu Liyue and said firmly. I wonder if Miss Dugu dares to accept? There was dead silence all around. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Chu Liyue. In fact, not only Jiang Jiwan, but they also had the same doubts in their hearts. In this almost suffocating atmosphere, Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly, then smiled slowly, and there seemed to be stars twinkling in her eyes. She nodded with a relaxed expression. Digression. Cowan felt uncomfortable. Today at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.